To celebrate my nephew getting into an elite elementary school, my brother treated the whole family to hot pot. While waiting for the food, my nephew suddenly leaned close to the pot that had just been turned on, worried he might get burned. I pulled him back to his seat. My sister-in-law, however, thought I was hitting my nephew and lunged at my eye with a fork. Later, they left me injured on the side of the road, leading to my death in a car accident. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day when my brother suggested having hot pot. This time, I didn't stop my nephew's actions. Isn't it fun to move around, burn to death? Great, we got it. Our son is going to attend the prestigious elementary school. My sister-in-law excitedly held up her phone and shouted. I was startled awake by her voice and reflexively touched my eyes. No pain, and I can see again, so I'm reborn. Our son will be at the top of society, and all his friends will be wealthy. My brother laughed loudly and proudly. For a moment, everyone else was grinning from ear to ear. We should celebrate properly. Let's go for hot pot. Just like in my previous life, my brother suggested celebrating outside. I clenched the rag in my hand, and my eyes started to hurt again. In my previous life, I died right after eating hot pot. My nephew got into a prestigious elementary school through a lottery, and the whole family was thrilled. My brother, who always stays at home, even suggested going out to eat. I got to tag along, thanks to my nephew. While waiting for the dishes, my nephew, as if with ADHD, was touching everything. Seeing him about to touch the hot pot base, I quickly pulled him back to his seat. The commotion startled my sister-in-law, who was playing with her phone. Seeing the red mark on my nephew's wrist, she grabbed a fork and jabbed it at my son can do whatever he wants. Who are you to interfere? I couldn't dodge in time, and my eyes were instantly blinded. Afterwards, they ignored my injuries, threw me outside, and started eating hot pot on their own. Finally, after the meal was over, I thought they would take me to the hospital, but they led me to the middle of the road, leaving me to be hit and killed. Before I died, I kept regretting. I regretted stopping my nephew's actions, and I regretted not cutting ties with them. Fortunately, now I've been reborn. Isn't your nephew going to a prestigious school, as his aunt? Don't you have anything to say? Seeing that I didn't react, my mom directly grabbed my ear and said, You think I'm giving you face? Huh, you dare to pretend you didn't hear me? The pain in my ear brought me back to reality, and I quickly waved my hands and said, How could that be, Mom? I'll pay for the hot pot. Okay, Mom finally let go. That's more like it. I also want Lego and branded shoes. My nephew was jumping up and down in a frenzy, as if he'd tear the roof off if he didn't get what he wanted. Auntie will buy it for you, right? The sister-in-law looked at me, her eyes full of menace. I suppressed the hatred in my heart and said with a sweet smile, What do you want? I can buy it for you. A rumbling sound reached my ears, and my brother said impatiently, All right, let's go eat first. I'm starving. A hint of disdain flashed in my sister-in-law's eyes, but she quickly hid it. I didn't miss that fleeting expression. It seems like my sister-in-law doesn't love my brother as much as she pretends to. On the way to the hot pot restaurant, I kept thinking about how to get out of this situation. As long as I'm present, the blame for my nephew's injury can be pinned on me. In my previous life, no matter how they treated me, I always considered them family. I no longer care to maintain this relationship with them. They will experience all the suffering I endured. Two of everything except shrimp. My brother ordered without hesitation, looking at this hot pot meal costing nearly $2,000. I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. My sister-in-law noticed my thoughts and said sarcastically, Some people rein in that expression of yours, as if we've eaten $20,000 of your money. Mom also noticed what was going on over here. My great-grandson is destined for leadership. You couldn't even buy a glance from him with $2,000. Something that won't happen for 8 lifetimes, and she has the nerve to say it out loud. I cursed in my heart but fawned on the surface, saying, Nephew, don't forget about your aunt in the future. Brother seemed to suddenly remember something and stared at me. Oh right, the tuition is $80,000, due at the start of the semester. Don't forget. Seeing that I didn't respond, Mom threw her chopsticks at me. Hey, you wouldn't refuse money, would you? Why should I take the money? Back then, she forced me to drop out of middle school to support my brother's college education. Now that I've graduated, I still have to pay for my brother's wedding. Then, my nephew was born. I paid for the baby formula, the nanny, and the preschool fees. After getting married, my brother just stayed at home and didn't look for a job. No matter how many times I hear this, it still makes me furious, but I still responded softly, just as I had in my previous life. Okay, after today, there's no guarantee my nephew will be able to go to school normally. Make me pay the tuition. Nice try. The restaurant was overcrowded, and the waiter rushed over to apologize. Sorry, please wait a moment. As soon as he heard that he couldn't eat yet, his nephew immediately became unhappy. He tore the tissues on the table into pieces. I want to eat. I want to eat. The surrounding people's disdainful gazes fell on the nephew, and the older brother's face darkened. Son, You're going to attend an elite school in the future. You can't let these lower-class people look down on you. The nephew sniffled a few times. But I'm hungry. You're a noble. In the future, you can even rent out an entire restaurant for your meals. Then, you can do whatever you want. And these people will just have to watch you from the doorway, not daring to say a word. This overly cringeworthy speech left everyone around stunned. I quietly listened to their chatter. What a cliché. Must be reading too many novels. Absolutely spot on. It's just a fancy kindergarten, but my brother thinks he's already a nobleman. He keeps throwing around the term lowly people, as if he's about to ascend. My nephew has stopped crying, but his hands are still busy. He tugs at my hair one moment, then mixes the condiments on the table the next. Finally, the waiter brought the dishes. I've turned on the switch at the bottom of the pot. Don't touch it. It's hot. My brother and the others were all playing with their phones. No one paid any attention to her. Okay, we understand, I replied. Finally, the moment has arrived, and I'm so excited that my hands are trembling. Mom, I have a stomachache. I'm going to the bathroom. Mom didn't even acknowledge me. She was still engrossed in her phone. Before leaving, I reminded my nephew one more time, absolutely do not touch the bottom of the pot. Remember that. My nephew is just like any other mischievous kid. The more you tell him not to do something, the more he wants to do it. Hearing my words, my nephew's eyes lit up as he stared at the bottom of the pot. I noticed his reaction. I also knew my nephew was about to cause trouble. In my previous life, it was because of my intervention that my nephew wasn't scalded. But what was the outcome for me? Blinded and mangled by a car? Even now, with my eyes closed, I can still feel the pain. Since kindness goes unrewarded, I'll just leave it be. You love moving around, don't you? Then go ahead, get burned for all I care. I spent about a minute in the bathroom when suddenly a scream came from outside. Son, are you alright? I walked out with my phone, unable to hide the smile in my eyes. Isn't karma just around the corner? 3. How are you guys doing your job? Why is the bottom of the pot hot? Mom was yelling arrogantly without stopping. I looked past her and saw my nephew's face flushed red. To be precise, it's my nephew with his face and right side of his body completely red. Goodness, he's practically stuck to the bottom of the pan. I'm calling the police. This is attempted murder. Where's the boss? My sister-in-law held the nephew with heartache, and with a sudden pull, the nephew let out another wail. The boss hurried over, questioning the waiter with his eyes. The waiter was sobbing so hard they could barely catch their breath. I told them the switch for the pot was on, but so it's our fault now. Did we force the child to stick to the pot? Mom stood up and pointed her finger at the waiter, yelling at him. They didn't force him. It was all voluntary on the nephew's part. I changed my expression and asked hurriedly, Mom, what's going on? What about the nephew? You're the one to blame for coming to this restaurant. Something bad happened, didn't it? The boss frowned and suggested, let's take the child to the hospital first. I'll cover the medical expenses. The sister-in-law, however, was not happy. Are you trying to run away, leading us on, aren't you? I'm calling the police. I'll make sure you get the death penalty. This remark directly made the boss laugh in anger. Then call the police. Check the surveillance and see if we forced your child to touch it, or if he did it himself. The 3 who knew the truth instantly froze, as if they had just remembered there was surveillance. I'm telling you, my child's burn is your fault. Just you wait. The onlookers who witnessed the whole thing chimed in. I saw it all. Your child touched it himself. I told him several times not to, but he wouldn't listen. In my opinion, he deserved it. The older brother slammed the table and stood up, his eyes dark with anger. If you dare spread rumors again, I'll throw you in there too. I was in a hurry, not wanting to involve innocent people. Sister-in-law, your son's face is covered in blisters. We need to go to the hospital. The nephew kept scratching his face, murmuring, it hurts so much, it hurts. Finally, the 3 of them realized it was not the time to argue. They carried the nephew out, leaving behind a harsh warning for the boss. You just wait. I'll call the police and have you arrested. The boss leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. I'm waiting. It's rush hour, and it took several minutes to finally get a taxi. On the way, my mom slapped me several times. You troublemaker. If it weren't for you, my grandson wouldn't have been burned like this. My sister-in-law, with tears in her eyes, said viciously, if anything happens to my son, you won't get away with it either. But they all seemed to have forgotten that it was their nephew who stuck himself to the bottom of the pot. No one forced him. I didn't say anything. Past experience has taught me, the more you argue, the angrier they become. With burns like that, my nephew's face is definitely scarred for life. This is just the beginning. The other 3 will pay for what they've done. Finally arriving at the hospital, my sister-in-law rushed my unconscious nephew to the emergency room. I stood by, acting as their human ATM. The dermatologist frowned deeply upon seeing his nephew. This is 3rd-degree burns. Why did you wait so long to come? The sister-in-law looked anxious. Doctor, my child's face. The doctor interrupted her. The burn is too severe and can easily lead to complications. We need to do a blood test, so please go get your blood drawn first. Although it was a normal statement, my sister-in-law's face turned pale. Do we really have to draw blood? Is there any way we can avoid it? I'm a bit puzzled. Why are we wasting time in a moment like this? What on earth is my sister-in-law so nervous about? Mom, this doctor just wants to scam us. For such a minor burn, just buy some ointment and apply it. My sister-in-law's eyes darted around nervously, looking very guilty. The doctor had probably seen this kind of scene too many times, so he just sighed and said nothing more. Both my mother and brother were stingy, and they were quick to agree. Seeing the sweat on my sister-in-law's forehead, a suspicion suddenly crossed my mind. Could it be that my nephew isn't my brother's? I interrupted them and advised, brother, with such a large area of burns, if not properly treated, it will leave scars, and then the classmates will laugh at you. These words hit home with my brother, and he stopped in his tracks. That's true. I can't let them look down on my son. Let's go. Time for a blood test. I ignored my sister-in-law's murderous glare and took my nephew to the blood draw area. When the nurse handed over the results, my sister-in-law's back was soaked with sweat. Without even looking at the form, I was already certain that my nephew wasn't my brother's child. Too bad. A routine blood test can't determine blood type, but what if my nephew's burn is severe enough to require debridement surgery? As long as the surgery is performed, the hospital will keep a record. At that point, I'll take the copies and accidentally let my brother see them. Thinking of this, I chuckled softly and shifted my gaze to my nephew. Hopefully, he can step up. Thank goodness. The wound on my nephew's body suddenly started to fester. My sister-in-law, however, didn't attend to him immediately but instead checked the form several times, ensuring the blood type wasn't displayed before rushing him to the dermatology department. The child's burn area is too large, and inflammation has already developed. Debridement surgery is necessary. Hearing the doctor's words, the brother's expression turned grim. What about my son's face? The doctor was a bit exasperated. We'll perform a skin graft surgery later. Mother's tears finally fell after holding them back all night. She glared at me with disgust. If it weren't for you, how could my grandson have ended up like this? You must pay for the surgery. I nodded, not contradicting her words. When she finds out that her beloved grandson of so many years is someone else's child, will she still feel so heartbroken, probably hoping he'd die soon? The surgery went well. When I saw my nephew again, half his body was wrapped in bandages. I glanced at the time and said to my mom, Mom, you all go home and rest. I'll stay here and watch over my nephew. Mom glared at me with bloodshot eyes, clearly annoyed. Of course it's you who has to stay. Who else would it be? After they left, I sat by my nephew's hospital bed, tentatively pressing on my nephew's wound. I was met with a violent struggle. I covered my face, but the smile at the corners of my mouth couldn't be hidden. It should have been like this all along. This is how it was meant to be. If I hadn't intervened in my previous life, my nephew would have ended up like this long ago. Empathy is something that should never have existed in the first place. The nurse who came to change the dressing thought I was crying and kept comforting me. After laughing for a while, I finally sent a message to my brother. Brother, my nephew definitely won't be able to attend PE class after school starts. I'll make a copy of his medical record to give to the school. I didn't get a reply, but I knew he must have received it. Because my brother is a phone-addicted guy who never puts his phone down. The next morning, I eagerly handed my brother a copy of the medical record, knowing he would just skim it. I adjusted the angle accordingly, ensuring that the first thing he saw was the line indicating blood type O. As I expected, my brother snatched the medical record with a livid face. My sister-in-law, unaware of what had happened, clung to my brother's arm cheerfully. My brother roughly pushed her away and demanded, I'm type A blood, you're type B blood. How did we end up with a child of type O blood? The late mother also heard this and said incredulously, What? I stood in the corner, taking in my sister-in-law's fearful expression. The show is about to begin. 5. The brother, knowing the truth, had completely lost his mind. He gave his mother a knowing look, then dragged his sister-in-law out of the hospital, kicking and pulling. His mother understood his intention and went to the front desk to arrange her grandson's discharge. I was in charge of taking the nephew home. Although my nephew is only 7 years old, he looks like a 15 or 16-year-old. By the time I got home, my arms were already sore. As I opened the door, my sister-in-law's sobs reached my ears. I didn't cheat on my spouse, just that one time. Who would have thought? Hearing this, the brother delivered another fierce kick. You bitch, still making excuses. We must get a divorce today. Honey, you've raised our son all these years. Can't you have any feelings at all? The sister-in-law clung to the brother's leg, looking extremely wronged, but the older brother got even angrier. He pulled his leg back and shouted, Get out of here with that bastard. His mother quickly stopped him. Hey, no way. She whispered something into her older brother's ear. I stood right behind them, listening to everything my mom said. It turned out that my mom wanted to extort the hot pot restaurant owner using her nephew. But my sister-in-law couldn't hear, and thought my mom was speaking well of her. After the mediation, my brother revealed a greedy smile. Get out, but this bastard stays. The sister-in-law isn't stupid. She naturally knows her brother won't treat her nephew well. Tears streaming down her face, she knelt down and begged. I was wrong. Please don't hurt my son, okay? I beg you, naturally. I got a beating from my brother and mom and was kicked out. Hey, go get me a banner. My brother kicked my shin and sent me the image. The screen read 4 big characters, unscrupulous merchant, return my son's life. The plan isn't finished yet, so I can't resist. I had to agree for now, but I'll inform the hot pot restaurant owner later. As I went downstairs, my sister-in-law hadn't left yet. Seeing me, she ran straight towards me, ignoring her injuries. I haven't treated you badly, have I? Could you do me a favor, sister-in-law? I knew what she was going to say before she even opened her mouth, so I nodded directly and said, sure, I'll take good care of your son. Sister-in-law was caught off guard by how quickly I agreed and paused for a moment. Then he threatened, if anything happens to my son, you won't get away either. You must protect him. What a shameless person. Just like in my previous life, I couldn't stop mocking inwardly, but on the surface, I gave my sister-in-law my assurance, taking care of your nephew, huh? I'll spare his life. Having achieved her goal, my sister-in-law didn't dare stay any longer and left after threatening me a few more times. Watching her limping away, I finally felt some of the resentment ease. This is just the beginning. I want them to experience the pain I felt on the brink of death in my previous life. I quickly finished making the banner and made a detour to the hot pot restaurant before heading home. Seeing the banner, the boss was so amused he laughed out loud. Don't worry, kid. I won't let them get away with it. After confirming the boss wouldn't be implicated, I felt at ease and went home. I was shocked by the terrible state of my nephew as soon as I entered the room. Mom, this doesn't look bad enough. You should cut off the good parts over there. My nephew had already passed out from the pain, looking completely disheveled. I wonder if this is more painful than being hit by a car and dying in my previous life. Mother's expression was wild. This is definitely going to net us a lot of money. We're going to strike it rich. Seeing me staring intently at my nephew, my brother warned, that money has nothing to do with you. Don't even think about it. I was left both amused and exasperated by that statement. They're already wary of me, even though they might not even get any money out of it. No wonder they were the ones who coldly watched as my sister-in-law hurt me in my previous life. Yes, you're not allowed to go. And you won't get a single cent of that money. Mom's smile vanished, and she stared at me with the same expression. A vague memory suddenly surfaced in my mind. In my previous life, we sat in a corner of the hot pot restaurant, unnoticed by anyone, but Mom said she found me disgusting, so she wrapped my head with her coat. Hearing me cry in pain, she stuffed a sock in my mouth. Finally, because of my brother's words, if you're blind, you can't make money, no use to us, my mother, along with my sister-in-law, pushed me into the middle of the road. Just before I died, I heard my nephew clapping and cheering. If anyone here is innocent, it's not these 4. Stay at home and don't follow us, or we'll kill you. My mother's threat brought me back to reality. Truly a family affair. One says they won't let me off. The other threatens to kill me. And they really would do it. Unfortunately for them, I won't give them the chance. I waited until I couldn't see them anymore from upstairs before heading to the hot pot restaurant. I was worried about being discovered, so I wore a hat. When I arrived, my mom was wailing at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, surrounded by a crowd. The boss wasn't one to mess with, and he immediately brought out the computer. Pointing at the surveillance replay on the screen, he said loudly, "Come and take a look. Folks, this guy's trying to scam us. His son got hurt on the right side that day, and now the left side is bandaged too." I hid among the crowd, watching my mother's once arrogant face turn anxious. She wanted to make a big scene, but the crowd wasn't giving her the chance. They directly called the police, who were then called in to handle the situation. In the end, the boss only paid for the debridement surgery. Watching my mother and brother's gloomy faces, I went home contentedly. Want to get rich by extorting people? Nice try. 6. After enjoying the lively scene for a while, I walked home, away from the crowd. Not long after, my brother and the others returned. I carried the freshly made yupo out of the kitchen. "Mom, how did things go? Let's eat." Mom was so frustrated that she knocked the noodles off the table with a sweep of her hand. The older brother threw his nephew to the ground and then casually poured chili oil from the table over him. Good for nothing. Useless piece of trash. Can't even get money. Why don't you just die? Probably the nephew's cries of pain only added to the older brother's irritation. He punched his nephew in the mouth, and in an instant, blood filled his mouth. While Mom and brother were venting their anger, I took a photo of my nephew's miserable state. "Sister-in-law, please come back quickly. Your nephew is about to be beaten to death." The reply came quickly. "Didn't I tell you to take good care of him?" Mom and the others even hit me. I couldn't protect him at all. After waiting a few seconds, there was no further message from the other side. Just as I was about to put my phone away, my sister-in-law called. "How is my son?" I quickly headed to the bedroom after a casual glance at my nephew's miserable state. There was no need for me to answer. My nephew's scream said it all. I'll make them pay." I flinched at my sister-in-law's sudden scream after rolling my eyes. I pretended to be scared and said, "What should we do, sister-in-law? It seems like Mom and the others have gone crazy. I want a divorce, and I want to take my son with me." "Tisk, what are you yelling for? Does speaking loudly make it happen?" With the idea of making my brother and Mom's life miserable, I gave my sister-in-law a suggestion. "If my brother drags his feet on the divorce, you won't be able to take your nephew away." "What should I do then?" With the internet being so advanced nowadays, if I were to film a video, my sister-in-law caught on immediately. "Exactly, I'm going to expose them. The photo I sent her will definitely come in handy." To avoid getting involved, I moved out of the house under the pretext of a business trip required by the company. As he left, his nephew was writhing in pain on the ground, unable to utter a single word. In just 3 short days, the once fearless and mischievous child had turned into this wretched state. If only I had known in my previous life that my nephew wasn't my biological child. Oh well, it's not too late to know now. My sister-in-law was quick to act. As soon as I finished tidying up the staff dormitory, my phone automatically pushed her live stream. In the video, the bruises on her face had not yet faded. A blown-up photo of her son being beaten was hung on the wall behind her. Such a tragic scene brought in a surge of traffic. The number of people in the live stream grew, and my sister-in-law's crying became more and more desperate. "Family, I beg you, please help me. If this continues, my son and I will die." A special effect suddenly appeared on the screen, shaped like a rocket. I clicked on the gift and found that this rocket actually cost 1,000 yuan. The sister-in-law was also stunned, with tears humorously hanging from her eyelashes when she spoke again. Her excitement was impossible to hide. The live stream also shot to the top of the trending list because of this gift. As the sister-in-law's mutual follower, the brother obviously quickly came across the live stream. Faced with my mom and brother's barrage of messages, I promptly blocked them. "Please, now that I know what kind of people they are, why would I even bother? They're probably plotting at home right now, scheming how to get rid of me for the next week." No matter how much advice netizens gave my sister-in-law, she ignored it all. Eyes swollen like walnuts only light up when receiving gifts. Watching her greedy demeanor, she probably forgot about her own son. While scrolling through a live stream, Auntie Lou from downstairs suddenly called me. I was a bit puzzled, so I pressed the answer button. "Child, it seems your mother has sold your nephew. This is truly a shocking piece of news. How many years is human trafficking punishable by again?" I suppressed my excitement and whispered, "What's going on? I just got back from buying groceries and ran into your mom. She took your nephew over to that fat man and said he's his real dad. He might really be his biological father after all." After the excitement died down, I hung up the phone after sharing a huge piece of gossip with Auntie Lou. "Auntie, you don't know, do you? My nephew isn't my brother's biological child. The father of my nephew, that old man who looks like a hobo. I wonder if he'll interfere with my revenge plan." 7. The next morning, I was blocked at the company entrance by 2 heavily wrapped individuals. "You said you were on a business trip, didn't you?" Mom looked like a thief, with only one eye visible from top to bottom. I looked wronged and said, "Yes, I just got back from a business trip today." "Mom, why are you wasting time with her? If it weren't for her, we wouldn't have been cyberbullied, so that's what this is about." It was only then that Mom remembered her purpose for coming here. "Right, why did you take pictures of us beating that bastard?" Being in a sensitive position, their voices were very low, and even their movements were gentle. "It's completely different from the act of my previous life, where someone dared to kill me in public. I didn't want to, but my sister-in-law threatened me. Although the 2 of them are extremely annoyed with me, they still believe what I say, unfortunately. This does nothing to quell their anger over being cyberbullied." Seeing my brothers move to grab me, I quickly dodged away. "Mom, since your sister-in-law is inciting online bullying against you, you can fight back online too." My brother paused his movement, taking my words into consideration. With a look of deep resentment, he grabbed his phone and walked in the opposite direction. Mom hurried to catch up, cursing me on her way out. "I'll deal with that bitch first, then it's your turn. Just you wait." I watched them leave, expressionless. "Of course, I'll wait. I'm looking forward to the dog-eat-dog show they'll put on for me. Before everything ends, the company won't be coming, just in time to take my annual leave. I used to cover all my brother's expenses, almost becoming a money-making machine. Now that I've been reborn, it's time for me to take a break." My brother, a true smartphone addict who never lets go of his phone, is incredibly fast at operating it. As soon as I finished my vacation, I received news that my brother was going live. He posted evidence of his sister-in-law's infidelity online, quickly sparking a wave of heated discussion, but netizens remained clear-headed, unanimously agreeing that even if she cheated, he shouldn't have resorted to violence. With traffic coming in, there were naturally plenty of people tipping upon learning about this. The sister-in-law also started her own live stream. Their public spat attracted a huge wave of attention. As the number of live streams increased, netizens began accusing it of being scripted. In just a few days, her sister-in-law experienced the feeling of falling from grace. To prove herself, she returned home with a kitchen knife, encouraged by online comments. Her mother was caught off guard and immediately found herself at a disadvantage. Her sister-in-law knew that too much violence would get her banned, so she put her phone aside. I put on my headphones and rushed home while listening to my mother's screams, nothing else, just because I had just found my nephew who had been missing for over a week. If my sister-in-law finds out, the thought alone is exhilarating. My mother's voice grew weaker, her lips murmuring my brother's name incessantly, since she calls him Gidge. It means he's at home, but strangely, her brother didn't come out to help her. Just as she was puzzled, a cheer suddenly erupted in the live stream. Great, this one's in the bag. So he really was gaming. Once my brother starts gaming, not even an earthquake could interrupt him. It's just, her son, whom she raised with such devotion for over 30 years, was playing games while she lay dying. I wonder if mom regrets raising such an ungrateful wretch. In my past life, I yearned for familial love so desperately that even when treated unfairly, I still hoped my mother would spare me some affection, but in this lifetime, I won't beg for scraps of love anymore. The live stream fell into complete silence, broken only by the heavy footsteps of my sister-in-law. The next instant, an identical cry of pain echoed, only this time, it came from my brother. I opened the door, stepped over mom's corpse, and headed toward the bedroom. Just as she was about to bring the blade down on my brother's head, I stopped her. Sis, your son's been taken by his own father for some live stream. He looks really weak. 8. My sister-in-law didn't believe me at first, but panicked after seeing the comments from concerned netizens. Without even wiping the blood from her face, she grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed to the location mentioned online. As she passed by, I caught fragments of her muttered words. My golden goose mustn't die. How could a mother say something like that? Ever since getting scalded at the hot pot restaurant, my nephew's wounds haven't healed properly. Despite the debridement surgery, the summer heat caused inflammation to flare up again. Looking back, my nephew really had it rough. His birth parents saw him as cash cow, while his adoptive father treated him like dirt. Sounds familiar, been there, done that, but don't mistake me for some bleeding heart. My nephew used to give me hell. Spoiled rotten by his mom and aunt, sometimes they'd sneak ants into my food, other times it was thumbtacks in my shoes. In my past life, I endured it all for the sake of family ties. Now he's finally gotten what he deserved. I sat on my bed without so much as glancing at my brother lying on the floor. That old man was live streaming from the security booth in the abandoned park. Everyone around here considers it part of their childhood memories, so they recognized it instantly. I was watching both of their live streams simultaneously. One was filled with heavy panting, while the other kept whining pitifully. Watching the old man sob uncontrollably really reminded me of my nephew's tearful moments. The first time I saw him, I was stunned by the uncanny resemblance. He's practically a grown-up version of my nephew. On screen, the elderly man wept bitterly while cradling his nephew wrapped like a mummy. My boy, if only I'd come a few years earlier. You wouldn't have suffered so much. What? I never treated him as a cash cow. I just learned the truth myself. The old man wiped his tears as he responded to netizens' comments. That crazy bitch dares to show up. After what she did to my son, I'll beat her to death. No sooner had he spoken than his sister-in-law charged through the doorway, knife raised. The two were evenly matched, and within moments both were covered in blood. The old man, weaponless, could only cover his head and beg for mercy in the end. Your sister-in-law told me, here's your son back, stop fighting. The sister-in-law was blinded by rage. Just as she was about to deliver the final blow to the old man, the police arrived. When she first attacked her mother and brother, the phone was placed aside, so the footage wasn't visible. Netizens thought it was staged and even helpfully pointed out the other actor's location to her, but when they saw the actual murder scene, they all panicked. The barrage of comments flooded in, with viewers claiming they'd called the police. Just as I was thoroughly enjoying the show, my brother, who'd fainted from shock, suddenly came to, his face pale with terror. He screamed, I was wrong, don't kill me. Hearing the police sirens, I forced out a few tears. Bro, don't be scared, the cops are here. I was taken in for questioning while my brother, who'd passed out again, was rushed to the hospital. Learning from the police that my nephew had been dead for days didn't surprise me much. After all, he hadn't uttered a single word during the live streams these past few days, not even a cry of pain. Something was clearly wrong. I wasn't involved in my sister-in-law's scheme, and our chat history shows nothing unusual. The police just asked me a few questions before letting me go. By the time I reached the hospital, my brother had already woken up. He looked exhausted. but started screaming hysterically when he saw me. Aren't you supposed to be dead? Why are you still here? Just one sentence, and I knew he had been reborn too. Probably terrified by his sister-in-law, he kept scratching his wounds. Wait, am I dead too? His scream summoned the doctor. With a sedative shot, my brother calmed down again. I pretended to be frightened, trembling and crying. After the doctor suggested committing him to a mental institution, I returned home in a daze. My brother went insane, making me the sole heir to the family fortune. To be precise, these things were rightfully mine all along. First I withdrew the money from the bank, then used the 20,000 yuan my brother earned from live streaming to send him to a psychiatric hospital. In the blink of an eye, I became someone with 1,000,000 yuan in savings. I'll still go to work, but I won't waste my own money on my brother. Autumn arrived, and the hospital called again reminding me to pay the bills. Instead of wiring the money directly, I went to visit my brother at the hospital. Today happened to be one of his more lucid days. Life treating you well after rebirth, you little bastard. I sat down beside him under his withering glare. Bro, you know what? They say lots of people are getting reborn these days. Rebirth gives you a shot at changing your fate. Hey bro, how'd you die in your past life? My brother ignored me, but his eyes fixed on the window burned with longing. I didn't press further, and after my little solo performance, I headed downstairs. Just as I reached the front desk to pay, a commotion erupted outside. Someone jumped from the rooftop. Wasn't the rooftop locked? How'd they get up there? Never mind this now. Notify the family. I touched my hair, where traces of a black hairpin still lingered. So he died by jumping off a building in his past life. No payment is required now. Another funeral with no attendees. Carrying the urn to the riverbank, I scattered every last speck into the water. My heart danced like sunlight glinting on the waves. Freed from my vampire kin, life would be sweeter. Look ahead, the future is bright. Story 2, my sister-in-law was scratched by the neighbor's dog, and I urged her to get a rabies vaccine. She dismissed it as me overreacting, and only agreed to go after I offered to pay for it. Later, she found out she was pregnant, but the doctor recommended an abortion due to fetal abnormalities. She blamed me for everything, convinced that the rabies vaccine I insisted on caused the complications. I incited my parents and brother to beat me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my sister-in-law was scratched by the dog, watching my sister-in-law, who was crying out in pain from the dog scratch. I curled the corner of my mouth and said, "Sis, it's just a scratch. You'll be fine." This is so annoying. My sister-in-law frowned. What's wrong with this dog? It just scratched me out of nowhere, and now my hand's bleeding. My vision cleared as I took in my surroundings, pinching the palm of my hand in disbelief. I had actually been reborn on the very day my sister-in-law got bitten. Watching the dog dart back to the neighbor's house and my sister-in-law dabbing her wound with a tissue, my eyes darkened. In my previous life, my sister-in-law and I were heading out when we happened to see the neighbor's dog push open the gate and dart out on its own. Our building has 2 units per floor, and the neighbor next door recently got a dog that often manages to slip out by itself. When I first saw that muscular dog, I was so startled that I took a few steps back and refused to go any closer. But my sister-in-law found it fascinating. It was her first time seeing such a powerfully built dog, so she picked up her phone and slowly moved closer. She snapped at me impatiently. What's there to be afraid of a dog? Perhaps the dog sensed danger and barked at her, but my sister-in-law paid no mind. As she approached, the dog lunged at her, though she reacted quickly. Its claws still scratched her. I kindly urged my sister-in-law to get a rabies vaccine. She turned it around and accused me of making a big deal out of nothing. It was just a dog scratch. No need to go to the hospital. Plus, the dog belonged to the neighbor, and she was worried it might strain their relationship. She lectured me from her position as an elder, going on about social etiquette, but changed her tune when I offered to pay. Smiling, she held my arm and said, "Winifred, I think you're right. Getting a rabies shot is just being safe. Better safe than sorry." So I used my freshly received scholarship to cover the cost of my sister-in-law's rabies vaccination. When my parents found out about it later, they scolded and punished me severely. My sister-in-law suddenly changed her attitude and said to my parents with a sigh, I told her it wasn't necessary, but Winifred just wouldn't rest easy. She insisted on taking me to get the shot. I had no choice but to go along with it. Mom got even angrier at this, grabbing the broom nearby and hitting me hard with it. "You good for nothing. It's just a dog scratch. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? So you've read a few books and now you think you know everything, huh?" Seeing the situation turning ugly, my sister-in-law quickly backed away a few steps and slipped quietly into another room while my mom was in the middle of hitting me, afraid she might get caught in the crossfire. After all, she was involved in this matter too. But with the scapegoat taking the heat, she wasn't as frightened anymore. A month later, my sister-in-law felt unwell and went to the hospital for a checkup. To her surprise, she was pregnant. Before she could even process the joy, the doctor's words froze the smile on her face. The doctor advised her to terminate the pregnancy due to fetal abnormalities. She remembered the rabies vaccine she had gotten earlier and pinned all the blame on me. She went home looking aggrieved and gave a heavily embellished account of what happened. I ended up being accidentally beaten to death by my parents, who were desperate for a grandson, and my brother, who longed for a son, Winifred. Do you think this wound is going to be okay? My sister-in-law asked uncertainly, holding out her injured hand for me to see. Sis, I really don't know, even though I'm a college student. I didn't study medicine, so I'm not sure about this wound. I suppressed the hatred in my heart, but getting scratched probably isn't a big deal. Besides, it's the neighbor's dog. We shouldn't make a fuss and risk making things awkward between us. At those words, my sister-in-law's face stiffened. Clearly taken aback at being lectured by someone younger than her, she shot a displeased glance at the neighbor's dog and muttered, "It's probably nothing serious, right?" I smirked inwardly. Sorry. But that dog really is trouble. I remembered that in my past life, on the very day my sister-in-law went for her checkup, the neighbor's dog happened to cause an incident. Sis, if you're really worried, you could always get the rabies vaccine. It's only about $1,000 or $2,000, after all. But I shifted the topic. Technically, the neighbor should cover the cost, but I gave her an uneasy look. 2,000 yuan, that's outrageous, my sister-in-law exclaimed. Honestly, I wouldn't have taken the photo if I'd known. I just wanted to pet the dog because I'd never seen that breed before. Who knew it would be so ill-tempered? My sister-in-law cursed under her breath. I tried to comfort her, saying, "Let's go home and clean that wound first, sis." My sister-in-law nodded, but as she left, she spat toward the neighbor's doorstep. I watched it all with a faint smirk. If you think the rabies vaccine harmed your child, then so be it. This time, you'll get your wish. In the afternoon, my sister-in-law came up to me and said, "Winifred, my hand is injured. You'll have to make dinner tonight." I raised an eyebrow. From high school until now, when have I not been the one doing all the housework? After evening self-study, I still had to do the laundry for the whole family. Now, during the summer break from university, they made me come back. Not only do I have to earn my own living expenses for the next semester, but I also have to take care of the entire household. But now that I've been reborn, why would I ever do such things again? I showed her the screen of my phone, and sure enough, her expression instantly turned sour. With an apologetic look, I said, "I'm really sorry, sis-in-law, but I'm on the night shift these days, so I'm about to head to work and probably won't be able to make dinner." My sister-in-law forced a stiff smile and said, "Fine." I stood up to leave, and seeing the irritation in her eyes, I couldn't help but chuckle. I just asked the manager for a week of night shifts. I'm in no mood to cater to this whole family, too. Besides, it shouldn't be long before someone's time is up. I told them too late today, so the manager didn't schedule me for a shift. After my usual dinner time, I ended up wandering around outside for another hour before heading home. But the moment I opened the door, my brother's irritated voice greeted me. "Taking so long today is one thing, but what is this? It's ridiculously salty. Did you dump a whole pack of salt in it?" I stood by the door without saying a word. Maybe I should have come home earlier after all. Wish I'd stayed out for another bubble tea. "Winifred, what the hell did you cook today? Even a beggar would turn this down," I replied calmly from the doorway. "I didn't make it." "What?" My brother snapped impatiently, then paused when he noticed me standing at the door. His eyes widened as he saw my sister-in-law emerging from the kitchen with a plate of vegetables. My mother quickly interjected, "Tyson, she didn't cook today, your wife did." My sister-in-law looked aggrieved. "I hurt my hand today." "What happened to your hand?" her husband asked, puzzled. In an instant, everyone's attention was drawn to the distinct scratch marks on her wrist. Rubbing her hand, she muttered, "The neighbor's dog scratched me. Who knows why it suddenly went crazy?" The older brother glared at his wife disapprovingly. "I told you not to pet that dog. They warned us last time that it's aggressive." His wife mumbled defensively, "How was I supposed to know?" She then glanced at me. "Winifred, weren't you supposed to be at work? Why are you home so early today? Did you lie about working just to get out of cooking?" She asserted confidently. "How could you be so inconsiderate? Are you just going to let our parents go hungry? You got it right." But I'm not going to admit it. I lowered my head and said, "Sis, one of my coworkers had something come up today, so we swapped shifts. I'll be working doubles from now on, but at least this way I'll be making a bit more money." After I said that, my parents shifted their skeptical glances toward my sister-in-law. "All right, let's just eat for now." I walked over to my sister-in-law and glanced at the scars on her hand. "It doesn't look like it's been treated properly, probably just had some iodine dabbed on it." "Sis, that bite looks pretty serious," I said with a frown. "I think it's better to get a rabies shot." Her expression softened a bit. She also thought the wound looked fairly severe. She'd been feeling pain in her hand while cooking earlier today. When I said that, my mom immediately got upset. "What rabies vaccine? That's just a scam to get your money. It's just a scratch." Why are you making such a big deal out of it? My mom shot me a disapproving look and said, don't let your education go to your head. For a minor injury like this, just put some ointment on it. Hearing my mother scolding me, my sister-in-law's earlier thoughts faded away, watching me get yelled at. Her eyes held a hint of schadenfreude as she said, that's right, Winifred, it's not a big deal. There's no need for any shots. All right, let's drop this subject, Winifred. How much scholarship money did you get this time? My father suddenly spoke up, putting an end to the topic. I stared coldly at my parents in front of me. Although I had long known that my parents favored sons over daughters, I never imagined they would actually follow my sister-in-law's advice and end up causing my death. I lowered my gaze. Not yet. The school said it'll be delayed. Hearing this, Mom frowned with displeasure. Why is it being postponed this time? But she didn't suspect anything because she knew I was a pushover who'd never lie to them. I sneered inwardly. Of course it'll be delayed. Even if it's delayed further, you won't even remember this matter. After all, there's a much bigger issue that's going to come your way. Besides, I haven't forgotten their despicable faces from my past life, the ones responsible for my death, now that I've been given a second chance. Why on earth would I give them any money after the meal? My sister-in-law used her hand injury as an excuse to ask me to help with the housework. I calmly turned her down. Her face was a picture of disbelief, as if she never expected I would refuse. Frowning with a lecturing tone, she said, Winifred, you're not a child anymore. If you don't start doing some housework now, no in-laws will ever like you in the future. I looked at her curiously and replied, but sister-in-law, by that logic, since my brother married you, if you're making me do all these chores, doesn't that mean you're not well liked either? My sister-in-law was left speechless, her face flushed with anger, and she stormed off to confront my brother. My brother clearly favors his wife. After all, I'm just the sister he sees as a tool to rely on. That's right. The only reason my parents had me was so I could support my brother someday. They even planned to marry me off for a hefty bride price. My brother lashed out at me, Winifred. What's your problem? Can't you see your sister-in-law hurt her hand? Is it too much to ask you to help with some chores? Just then, my phone started ringing. I picked up the phone and nodded along with a few acknowledgements. Then I looked at them with some hesitation. Sis, it's not that I don't want to help, but the manager just called saying the shop is swamped and needs me to come in urgently. Before they could say anything, I dashed out the door, as the door closed behind me. A slight smile crept onto my lips. Thankfully, I'd had the foresight to text my friend earlier to call me as soon as my sister-in-law started talking. Otherwise, she'd have me do her work again. For years, she's been taking advantage of my easygoing nature, constantly bossing me around. The next day when I went out, I happened to see my neighbor coming out with their dog. Looking at the dog, I instinctively took a few steps back. Noticing me backing away, my neighbor assured me, don't worry, my dog doesn't bite. I clenched my fist to steady myself and said, your dog looks quite strong. It's just that I was chased by a dog before, so I have a bit of a phobia now. My neighbor felt a bit smug when he heard me complimenting his dog. I went through a lot of trouble and spent a fortune to get this dog secretly. It's a pit bull, really hard to come by. I looked surprised and said, I had no idea it had such an impressive background. Pleased by my reaction, the neighbor gave a satisfied but when he saw I still looked uneasy, a hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. He then stepped into the elevator with his dog and left. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath slowly. The dog's muscular build looked downright terrifying, but what did he just call that dog again? A pit bull. Now that's interesting. I seem to recall that breed is actually banned. After a long day at work, I had just opened the door when I heard my brother's impatient voice. Mom, give me some money. My brother's tone was sharp. I could tell he'd lost it gambling again, out of money again. Mom frowned. Didn't I just send you a few thousand the other day? He scratched his head irritably. Lost it. I've told you to stop gambling. You're old enough to get a job and earn your own money. Don't go back to the tables. All right, I get it. Just give it to me now. How much do you need this time? I watched the mother and son coldly, remembering how my parents never bought me new clothes growing up. I always had to wear my older brother's hand-me-downs. It wasn't until high school that I finally bought myself new clothes with money from my part-time job. After graduating from high school, my brother tried a few jobs but found them either too exhausting or not paying enough. Our parents felt sorry for him and let him quit working. He ended up idle all day, squandering their retirement savings. He has a terrible temper too, constantly stirring up trouble outside, and our parents always have to clean up his mess. My sister-in-law was about to ask Mom for more money, since they both have a gambling habit, but then she noticed me standing at the door. I came home carrying a bag of things, and my sister-in-law casually asked as she walked over, "Oh, Winifred, you're back. What did you buy? Even though you've earned some money, you should still spend it wisely." I opened the bag and said, "I bought some sanitary pads." My sister-in-law laughed awkwardly and said, "Oh, that's what it is." I was just worried you might be spending recklessly. After all, money isn't easy to come by, but there's nothing wrong with spending the money I earn on myself, right? What do you mean, spending it on yourself? That money is for my future child. My sister-in-law blurted out what was really on her mind. So what my sister-in-law means is that you can spend it on your future nephew later. But sis, you're not pregnant right now. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she glanced at my sanitary pad, seeming to realize something before hurriedly pulling out her phone. Suddenly she looked up, her face lit with excitement. 2 months along. I feigned confusion and asked, "What do you mean? I haven't had my period for 2 months," she said, hurrying into the room. I knew exactly what she was going to do. Today, I deliberately let her find out she was pregnant. After my shower, I looked at the pregnancy test on the table and saw my parents' excited expressions. My sister-in-law placed a hand on her belly and said, "Tyson, you're going to be a dad. I'm going to be a dad." My parents looked thrilled too, saying, "We're going to be grandparents." Amid all this excitement, I was the only one who remained unmoved, like an outsider looking in, because I know they can only be happy for such a short while. These days, my sister-in-law has been living quite comfortably at home. Mom was thrilled when she first found out about the pregnancy, but since I've been working long shifts every day, my sister-in-law has been bossing her around, which has made her very upset. She feels like my sister-in-law is stepping all over her. They've had several arguments, and each time, my sister-in-law uses her pregnancy as an excuse, leaving Mom speechless. Afterward, Mom would come to me to vent, but I always reassured her, "Don't worry. My sister-in-law is only acting high and mighty for now." Mom thought I meant just during the pregnancy, and she found that reasonable. Just hang in there a little longer. And today when I got back, I heard the three of them arguing again, crying in her husband's arms. My sister-in-law said, "Tyson, I just asked Mom to buy me some plums. You know how it is. When you're pregnant, you crave something sour. But Mom told me to go buy them myself," she complained, snuggling against him with a pout. "How can I go running around like this now that I'm pregnant, son? The store right next door sells plums," Mom retorted. I was in the middle of cooking, so I told her to go get them herself. Mom's temper flared, her hands trembling with anger. "Enough is enough. You're only 2 months along. What's stopping you from taking a short walk? Plenty of women in their third trimester still go out for a stroll, but you lounge on the couch all day ordering everyone around like you're some kind of queen." The two of them started bickering back and forth until the brother snapped impatiently, "Enough, stop arguing," for they fell silent immediately. "Mom, Juanita is pregnant right now. Please cut her some slack. The baby she's carrying is your precious grandson." But before she could finish, the brother cut her off irritably. "Just do whatever she asks. She's carrying my son, and I won't tolerate anything going wrong." Their mother said nothing more, silently accepting what her son had said. I have to admit, today's drama was quite the spectacle. I wonder if Mom is still looking forward to her precious grandson. But these past few days, I've noticed something off about my sister-in-law. She's been feeling unwell, with frequent headaches, loss of appetite, and random drooling. She thought it was just pregnancy symptoms, but lately she's been feeling increasingly worse. I want to go to the hospital for a checkup, but my brother's gone off somewhere again this morning. No idea where he's wandered off to. She didn't want to go to the hospital alone, especially after just having a disagreement with our mom, and she didn't want to go with her either, so she turned to me, who was just getting ready for work. She came over to me and said, "Winifred, I'm not feeling too well and would like to go to the hospital for a checkup. Could you take some time off and come with me?" I nodded in agreement. She didn't expect me to agree so readily. She thought she'd have to lecture me before I'd go. I raised an eyebrow and spoke to my sister-in-law, who was still standing there. My sister-in-law hurried to catch up, but in my mind, I was thinking about my past life. In my past life, I also accompanied my sister-in-law to the hospital. But the difference was that she went to get a rabies vaccine back then. This time, she didn't get the rabies shot, and I'm just waiting to see how she tries to pin the blame for that unwanted child on me. I'll never forget her disgusting face, but I sneered inwardly. Looks like she won't need to get rid of it after all. In the hospital, what nonsense are you spouting? My sister-in-law suddenly became agitated, slamming her fist on the table. "I think you're a quack. My baby is perfectly healthy. Why should I have an abortion?" The doctor tried to comfort her, saying, "According to your test results, the fetal abnormalities might be related to your lifestyle or dietary habits." "What do you mean lifestyle? My routine is perfectly fine." She said this with little conviction, knowing she hadn't been careful during her pregnancy, and her brother often smoked around her. She frequently went out drinking with her brother late at night, but how could she admit it now? She knew if she lost this child, her family would surely blame her. At that thought, her voice rose sharply. "You quack, I'm going to sue you." But the moment she stood up, she struggled to breathe, gripping the table as she slowly collapsed to the floor. Everyone panicked and rushed her to the emergency room, while I calmly dialed my parents' number. "Mom, something's happened to my sister-in-law." Before long, my parents rushed to the hospital, and she asked anxiously, "Winifred, what's wrong with my grandson?" I sighed and handed them my sister-in-law's diagnosis report. Mom looked at the report and said, "Rabies, Winifred, what kind of illness is this?" I let out a sigh and explained rabies to her in simple terms. Upon hearing there was no cure, she nearly fainted. "Oh, my grandson," the mother cried out in anguish. 5. That evening, my brother finally rushed to the hospital, looking completely agitated. As soon as he saw our mom, he blurted out, "Mom, what's the big deal? It's just a pregnancy. Why did you have to call me over?" This made me lose hundreds of dollars. With a sorrowful expression, Mom said, "Tyson, Juanita has rabies." At that, my brother's eyes widened in shock. "What did you just say? Rabies?" My mother said through tears that it was from a scratch by the neighbor's dog a while back. "What do we do? They say rabies is incurable. What will happen to my grandson?" My brother still couldn't believe it. "Mom, you're joking, right? How could it be such a coincidence?" Stumbling into the ward, he saw his sister-in-law in the throes of rabies, her body convulsing uncontrollably as she let out canine-like howls. He collapsed to the floor. "How did this happen?" he muttered repeatedly. "Rabies, dog, the dog." Suddenly remembering, he scrambled to his feet and cried, "Mom, it was that dog. It's the one that did this to my wife. Find his owner." "Yes, Tyson, hurry up." I watched the three of them walk away, then glanced at my sister-in-law lying in the hospital bed, and couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. In the end, the dog wasn't killed after all, because when my brother and the others went to the neighbor's door with a cleaver, the neighbor called the police. The police soon invited them to the station for a chat. At the hospital, I learned that the neighbor denied his dog was responsible, accusing my brother of extortion. My brother was so furious he nearly got physical again, while my sister-in-law's parents also rushed to the hospital. Seeing their daughter in such a state, they were crying uncontrollably, but I couldn't stand their hypocritical display. My sister-in-law and I are in similar situations, both from families that favor sons over daughters. She has a younger brother and often gives money to her parents' household. I've heard them argue countless times over this. Now my sister-in-law's mother has been fake crying for ages without shedding a single tear. The noise is getting on my nerves, and I can't be bothered to stay here any longer. They saw I wanted to leave and immediately blocked my way. "Winifred, I entrusted my daughter to your family. Look how you've treated her. How did my perfectly fine daughter end up in this state? Maybe I just have that pushover vibe. Why does everyone always take their frustrations out on me?" Suddenly remembering something, I said, "Mom and Dad, along with my brother, went to demand compensation from that man. It was his dog that caused my sister-in-law's condition, so I'm not sure if they'll actually get any payment." Upon hearing about the potential compensation, the mother and son immediately changed their tone. "He absolutely has to pay. He's the one who put my daughter in this state." Soon, only my sister-in-law, the doctor, and I were left in the hospital room. I turned to the awkward-looking doctor and said apologetically, "Sorry about that, doctor." The doctor shook his head, and I gently asked, "Doctor, how much time does my sister-in-law have left?" The doctor sighed. "Not much time, I'm afraid. You found out too late." After seeing the doctor out, I slowly approached my sister-in-law, watching her as she lay there helpless. 6. I spoke softly. "In my past life, I generously used my own money to save you, yet not only were you ungrateful, but you also blamed me for everything when there were issues with your unborn child. In the end, you all beat me to death. This time around, I'm granting your wish by not taking you to get the rabies vaccine, so I suppose you won't hold a grudge against me now, will you?" My sister-in-law stared at me wide-eyed, completely speechless. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and whenever she tried to speak, all that came out were barks like a dog. After a whole night, my parents and the neighbors still hadn't managed to reach a successful resolution. The neighbor's pit bull is a banned breed in the city and is currently under investigation. At the police station, the neighbor was very agitated, saying, "There's definitely nothing wrong with my dog. Who knows if they're just trying to extort money? I spent a fortune importing this dog from overseas. There's no way they can just confiscate it now." But no matter how much he protested, his dog was still taken away, and he was fined. I recall in my previous life, my neighbor bought this pit bull and would often take it out for walks. One time, the dog accidentally bit a passerby, and the neighbor grudgingly paid the person some compensation. However, the passerby didn't use the money to get a rabies vaccine. It wasn't until days later, when symptoms appeared, that they realized it was from that dog bite. Sadly, the person passed away within a few days, and their family came to the neighbor's door to protest several times, but my sister-in-law and the others had no idea, because this all happened after I died. Perhaps it was because my death was so unjust that my spirit lingered. The police found my demise highly suspicious and conducted a covert investigation, eventually uncovering that I was murdered by them and bringing them to justice. "Officer, look what happened to my wife. He has to pay for this." At first, the neighbor kept denying it, but then the police checked the surveillance footage and confirmed it was indeed his dog that scratched my sister-in-law. There's no way to deny it, but the surveillance footage also shows that my sister-in-law ignored the dog's warnings, approached it, and ended up getting accidentally knocked over and scratched. My parents and the neighbor had almost reached an agreement. But then my sister-in-law's family showed up and immediately made an outrageous demand, insisting the neighbor pay her the same compensation amount, since it was her own daughter. The neighbor wasn't having it this time. He claimed he had no money and told them to go after the dog instead. After all, it was the dog that bit her, not him. 7. The crowd was arguing nonstop at the police station again, but they still hadn't received any compensation. I made a phone call earlier, and I'm not sure if it was something I said to my sister-in-law during our conversation, but it seemed to really upset her. Her emotional state became extremely unstable, and now her condition is critical. She's been admitted to the ICU. By the time they rushed to the hospital, my sister-in-law had already passed away. Oh my God, my daughter, my sister-in-law's mother cried, collapsing by the bedside. Tyson, is this how you take care of my Juanita? Look at her lying there cold in that hospital bed, carrying your child. I told her not to touch that dog, but she wouldn't listen. My brother explained weakly. Then why didn't you get her the rabies vaccine? Was it because you didn't want to pay for it? My brother grew flustered, clearly remembering something. What nonsense are you talking about? Mom stepped in front of my brother and yelled at her when she got bitten. We urged her to get the rabies vaccine. She's the one who refused to go. She said it wasn't worth wasting the money. Tyson even tried to persuade her back then. Yeah, that's right. I also tried to convince her to get the rabies shot at the time, but she refused. My brother retorted from behind our mom. Seeing that they were about to start arguing again, I stepped forward and said, "This is a hospital. If you keep arguing, you'll be escorted out." The group quickly quieted down. Realizing this was no place for an argument, they went to the police station next, where another dispute erupted over the sister-in-law's funeral expenses. The brother demanded $1 million in compensation from the neighbor. The sister-in-law's family also insisted on $1 million. The neighbor threw up his hands, saying he had no money and could only come up with 100,000 at most. "We can take the dog and do whatever we want with it." My brother refused because he knew the neighbor's son owned several restaurants. He must have made a fortune over the years. Last time, he saw the neighbor's son visiting in a luxury car. That's why he dared to ask for $1 million. "Warren, I know your son runs a restaurant. If you don't compensate us, I swear I'll go make a scene at his place." The neighbor's face darkened instantly as he glared back. "If you dare cause trouble at my son's business, don't blame me for what happens next. You'll be sorry. I'm the one who should be making threats. You're responsible for my wife's death, and you have the nerve to act like this. If I don't get $1 million, I'm going there tomorrow to raise hell." The neighbor fell silent, his gaze fixed on my brother with an unsettling ambiguity. 8. I stood by without daring to make a sound. I knew all too well what that look meant. In my past life, after I died and became a spirit, I witnessed him break into that person's home and attack their family members with a blade. It turned out he had been diagnosed with a mental illness. He came here to recuperate, but the incident with the dog triggered a relapse. That person's family had approached the neighbors multiple times, and later directly caused a scene at their son's shop. That very night, he pretended to offer compensation to the family but ended up assaulting them with a blade. Fortunately, the neighbors heard the screams and called the police immediately. Seeing that look in his eyes now, it reminds me of the exact same expression he had when he was arrested. A cold sweat broke out on my skin, my fingers trembling uncontrollably. Looks like I won't be able to stay at home for a while. That very night, the neighbor agreed to everyone's compensation demands. No one expected him to actually nod in agreement. My brother felt both relieved and suspicious. "Warren, can you really come up with $2 million? Warren smiled. "Of course, my family runs several restaurants, all doing quite well. This amount is well within our means." "That's good." With the matter resolved, my brother's mood lifted considerably. "I'll give you some extra time then. Let's go take care of my wife's situation first." Warren nodded with a smile. "Why don't you come to my place tomorrow evening? I can give you the money then. After all, I'm the one at fault here." My brother agreed with a nod, completely missing the hint of menace in Warren's eyes. "You're a college student, right? Make sure you come too. You can look over the agreement when you're here." Though he said it with a smile, a chill ran down my spine and I instinctively refused. "I have to work tomorrow." "You silly child. This is far too important. Just take the day off tomorrow." Mom came over and pinched my arm, saying with clear displeasure, "Yes, I need to take tomorrow off," Warren said with a meaningful smile. That afternoon, "Winifred, how much longer are you going to be in the bathroom?" "My stomach hurts a bit," I muttered, crouching in the bathroom and racking my brain for a way to get out of this. "Ever since I turned Warren down yesterday." Mom could tell how reluctant I was. I tried to explain that Warren clearly had bad intentions, but she just said, "What are you afraid of? There are so many of us going. It's not like he can kill us all." I really wanted to tell her that Warren absolutely could do exactly that, but she just wouldn't listen. Dad locked the door again, worried I might sneak out later. I heard Warren say, "I've got everything ready on my end and made some dishes. Come over to eat, and we can review the agreement right after." "All right, we'll be right there," Mom replied with a smile. "By the way, where's your daughter?" Warren suddenly asked. The kid had an upset stomach from something he ate yesterday and is in the restroom. He'll join us in a moment. Not sure what was said after that, but then there was a knock on the bathroom door. Winifred, hurry up, I'm telling you, don't you dare mess this up today. Is there really no escaping this fate of death? You made so many dishes. My brother blurted out. Yeah, I'm really sorry about what happened with your wife. My brother fell silent for a moment. I glanced up at him. Sometimes I really wonder if he even likes his wife. But that little bit of affection probably doesn't mean a thing when money's involved, because everyone in this family is selfish. Let's eat. I couldn't bring myself to touch a single dish on this table. I knew for a fact they'd added something to these dishes. That's exactly what Warren did in my past life. Ate, watching my parents and brother enjoying their meal with such delight. My stomach churned with nausea. Suddenly, I jumped up and rushed to the bathroom, unable to hold back from vomiting. What's going on? Warren asked with mild annoyance. My mother quickly added, the kid probably still isn't feeling well. After throwing up, I felt much better overall. I've been on edge since yesterday, and I didn't expect to end up throwing up, but at least I have an excuse to skip this meal. Winifred, what's going on with you? Mom followed me into the bathroom, crouching in the bathroom. I suddenly remembered the sanitary pads I bought earlier. Mom. My stomach hurts. I think my period just started. I need to go home and change. You're more of a hindrance than a help. Mom snapped irritably. Get back here right now. My heart instantly lightened when I realized things were looking up. Just as I was about to leave, Warren suddenly blocked my path. What's wrong? Why are you leaving all of a sudden? My stomach's bothering me a bit. I'm heading home for now, but I'll be back later. Stomach trouble. I've got some medicine here if you need it. It's that time of the month for me. Uncle, do you happen to have any pads at your place? Warren furrowed his brow slightly, glanced at his parents and brother eating their meal, and smiled. Hurry back, or the food will get cold. I nodded, and the moment I stepped back into the house, it still felt a bit surreal. Still, I knew home wasn't exactly safe either. Without a moment's hesitation, I quietly cracked the door open, seized the perfect moment, and dashed into the emergency exit. Even after sprinting out of the apartment building in one breath, I still couldn't believe it was real. I made it out. After leaving the residential complex, I walked straight into the clinic next door. What's wrong, sweetie? My stomach hurts. That evening, I got a call from the police. At the police station, I gave a full account of what happened that day. The police also told me that the food had been drugged. And it didn't take long before they became disoriented. Mom hadn't eaten much at the time, though she felt a bit dizzy. She didn't actually pass out. I saw Warren approaching Dad and my brother with a knife. She knew what he was about to do, and Warren noticed her awareness but paid it no mind. After dealing with them, I headed over to where my mom was, realizing there was truly no way out. My mom jumped off the balcony. Eventually, someone called the police. I was fortunate enough to escape that ordeal. As for Warren, he remains in custody due to psychiatric reasons. The moment I opened the door after giving my statement, I could tell the house was a mess. It was obvious someone had broken in, and the keys on the table were my brother's. Turns out Warren still had the key to get into the house. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. Thank goodness I managed to get out in time, or else. A month later, Warren was sentenced to death for intentional homicide. Despite presenting a psychiatric evaluation, he was still convicted since he was deemed mentally competent at the time of the crime. I sorted out all my affairs at home, took the compensation money, and picked up my luggage. After selling the house at a price well below market value, I left the city. Story 2, my sister and I were twins born in the same womb, each with our flaws. I was unsightly, and she was frail. Our mother exhausted all means to procure the jade beauty pill and the nurturing body elixir for us. My sister callously drove our mother to her death and swapped the jade beauty pill that was rightfully mine. Later, she employed every trick to enchant the monarch, yet only managed to become a low-ranking concubine. I bore 5 sons consecutively for the Qin ruler, and ruling from behind the curtain, I became the true hegemon of the realm. My mother gently brushed her fingertips over the corner of my eye. Take the jade beauty pill, and my Vivian will grow into a great beauty. When the time comes, I shall surely find you a good match. I obediently swallowed the pill and waited for a long while. My mother let out a puzzled only to hear Octavia, who was adjusting her sleeve mirror nearby, burst into uncontrollable laughter. Glancing sideways, I saw Octavia, already stunningly beautiful, becoming even more radiant and captivating. Sister, what you took was a fertility pill, she said with a smug smile, covering her lips lightly. Only beauties like me can truly make the most of the jade beauty pill. Mother's face turned crimson as she pressed her chest tightly, trembling with rage. Octavia and I are twins born from the same pregnancy, a face of striking ugliness, with a terrifying blood red spot the size of a fingernail on the eyelid, frail since childhood. Already 17 years old yet still without the arrival of menstruation, Mother blamed herself for all the faults, and in her later years, she exhausted all means to find these two utterly unique miraculous medicines. Overjoyed, she hoped to see in her lifetime my blood spot fade away and my appearance restored, with Octavia healthy and blessed with abundant descendants. The joy my mother felt just moments ago was now matched only by her despair, under my grief-stricken and helpless gaze. My mother coughed up a mouthful of blood and died on the spot. After a brief moment of panic, Octavia thrust forward her noticeably enlarged, proud bust. The pursuit of beauty knows no bounds. Since the medicine was meant for us anyway, what's wrong with me choosing one for myself? 7 days later, my mother was laid to rest, with her stunning beauty. Octavia caught the eye of the King of Chu and was being sent to the palace adorned in red and finery. Dressed in plain white mourning clothes to bury my mother, Octavia suddenly lifted the carriage curtain and looked my way. Our eyes met as her delicate finger pointed at me. "You, take off those ill-omened clothes and come serve me in the palace." Ignoring the mocking gazes of others, I publicly removed my mourning garments and obediently walked to Octavia's side. Yes, my beauty, that night, in the Reed Palace. Octavia ordered me to serve in the inner chamber. Listening to how the King of Chu was intoxicated by her beauty and how they indulged in passion throughout the night. Until the break of dawn, the King of Chu went to court, and only then did Octavia summon me, who had also stayed awake all night. Her black hair was disheveled, her eyes filled with emotion, her lips were crimson, and her graceful body was covered in vivid, ambiguous marks. "Thanks to your jade beauty pill, sister, the King of Chu couldn't get enough of me last night. He wanted to crush me into his very bones." Exhausted, Octavia's gaze was hazy, yet she smiled with unparalleled allure. "With this peerless beauty, I will surely reign supreme in the harem and become the most honored woman in the land of Chu. Yet I believe that even if fate grants wealth and glory, one must also have the fortune to enjoy them. With a beauty as peerless as yours, you're bound to achieve your heart's desire." Suppressing my overwhelming hatred, I flattered her against my conscience. A mischievous and malicious glint suddenly flashed across Octavia's triumphant face. "Sister's fertility pills seem quite remarkable too. What if I gift you to the eunuchs? Could you bear children for those rootless creatures as well?" The thought of those eunuchs, who couldn't even control their urination and reeked of foul odors, sent a chill of disgust through me. I merely lowered my head in silence when Octavia lifted my chin with her fingertip. "With this face of yours, no man would want you. Only a true sister would care about your lifelong happiness. Though eunuchs are incomplete, they can barely be considered men. What do you say?" Hearing Octavia utter the words "true sister," I felt both hatred and the urge to laugh. She had been frail since childhood, and our mother always treasured her like a jewel, yet no sooner had she driven our mother to her grave than she went to seduce the King of Chu. For over a decade, I too had doted on this delicate and beautiful younger sister. If she wants it and I have it, I'll give her everything I can. It's no exaggeration to say that when our mother isn't by Octavia's side, I, as the eldest sister, serve as half a mother to her. Yet I never dreamed that Octavia, whom we've doted on and cherished since childhood, would grow into such a selfish, malicious, and spoiled ingrate. "Then I'll trouble my sister to take the trouble of finding me a handsome-looking young eunuch," I said, lowering my eyes. "You look utterly despicable." "How amusing!" Octavia clapped her hands in laughter, daintily flicking away the tears of mirth at the corners of her eyes with jade-like fingertips. "Don't worry, sister, every fair-faced eunuch in the royal palace is yours." Half a month passed in this manner. The King of Chu doted on Octavia excessively, keeping her by his side every night. She quickly became the target of envy among the palace women, aside from occasionally punishing or humiliating me to vent her frustrations. She hardly had time to spare for me, seeing Octavia's enduring favor. The queen, who had been waiting to profit from the situation, could no longer sit still. I was just about to pledge allegiance when I accidentally learned of the Qin King's inspection tour to Chu territory. A thought flashed through my mind like fireworks. The world is now divided into 6 parts, with feudal states. All honor the Qin state, paying regular tributes, joining in battles, and defending the Qin royal family. The young King of Qin once traveled incognito and was prophesied by a physiognomist to have few descendants. If you truly possess such abilities, how could you fail to discern that I am the ruler of a kingdom? Though he executed the physiognomist in a fit of rage, now past 40 as the supreme sovereign, he still has only one princess as his offspring. I suddenly don't want to kill Octavia anymore, but rather make her life a living hell in another way. She held herself in high regard, believing her beauty alone could elevate her to the most noble position. Then I shall deliberately rise with this face she despises and this pregnant body, making her kneel at my feet in regret. The Qin King's inspection at this time is heaven helping me. Though he is decisive in killing and capricious in temper, he yearns for an heir but cannot obtain one. Though I seem plain and lowly, I can make the Qin King's descendants flourish. On the night the Qin King entered the palace, The Chu king held a grand state banquet of extreme extravagance. Under the bright moon, the lingering melodies of silk and bamboo instruments filled the air. The Chu king and queen sat together at a table below the Qin king, while Octavia, merely a concubine, was seated almost at the palace hall's entrance. Despite the distance, Octavia made no attempt to hide her infatuation. Gazing at the king of Qin with undisguised adoration, his sharply defined features exuded an intimidating aura, and his towering stature only amplified his aggressive presence. Though his regular features couldn't be called handsome, he was the kind of man whose mere glance could make women weak in the knees. Seizing the moment, I whispered softly, "Your Majesty is the ruler of all under heaven, mighty and majestic. Were I to become your woman in this lifetime, I could die without regret." Octavia's face was full of possessiveness as she gave me a cold glance. "How dare an ugly wretch like you covet the king? Even if you spread your legs before him, he'd only see you as a human sow, incapable of stirring the slightest interest." With that, she gracefully ascended the palace steps. "This humble concubine notices His Majesty seems disinterested in tonight's performances. I boldly offer myself to present a dance for the king's entertainment." Under the Chu king's icy, wrathful gaze, Octavia performed a slight curtsy, showcasing her stunning figure and snow-white skin to perfection. "Approved." The king of Qin waved his sleeve with effortless grace. Octavia's dance was enchantingly graceful, breathtakingly beautiful enough to topple cities and ruin states. A flicker of interest flashed through the king of Qin's unfathomably dark eyes. "If your Majesty does not disdain, let Octavia attend by your side." The Queen of Chu seized the opportunity to send this thorn in her side to the king of Qin, the woman he fancied. The king of Chu dared not refuse. After the state banquet concluded, Octavia was carried to the starlit pavilion where the king of Qin temporarily resided. I didn't even need to see it with my own eyes to imagine how excited and proud she must be. Tonight she would cling to the most noble man in the world, hook her arms around his neck, and ascend several peaks with him, in the Reed Palace. I took up a brush to carefully trace the red markings on my eyelids. A vivid pomegranate flower blooms upon porcelain white skin, as if blossoming in snow, breathtakingly beautiful. By the time the king of Qin arrived, I had already accidentally fallen into the clear liquid pool. Drenched clothes clung to my body, shivering uncontrollably when the wind blew. Bare-chested, he stepped into the water stride by stride, his bronze muscles distinctly defined. Under the moonlight, he appeared both powerful and scorching. Clutching my chest, I frantically waded through the water and scrambled up the jade steps. A large hand clamped onto my shoulder like an iron vice, his hard masculine body pressing tightly against my back. In that instant, I felt both ice and fire coursing through me. "You tempted me, why leave?" The king of Qin's voice was deep and magnetic. Trembling with fear, I slipped out of his embrace. "Though this humble servant adores your Majesty, I refuse to serve through mere physical charm. I seek neither fame nor status, only the bond of fate. Should destiny allow us to meet again, I shall willingly become your Majesty's woman." Braving the biting cold wind, I had barely returned to Jinjia Palace when Octavia was sent back by the king of Qin's order right after. Such is the nature of men, readily available beauties become dull, while the unattainable ones linger in their thoughts. Octavia, experiencing her first setback, raged through Jinjia Palace all night, smashing objects. "Impossible, impossible. Could it be that the king has grown too old to perform his duties?" Just as she was utterly perplexed, she heard the Qin king searching the entire palace for the world's most beautiful woman with pomegranate blossom eyes. "You go search for her too." Octavia ground her silver teeth, her face twisted with venom. "I'd like to see who else besides me deserves to be called the world's most beautiful woman by the king." Standing aside with my hands folded, I secretly laughed to myself. Octavia probably forgot. We share the same mother. If she's devastatingly beautiful, how could I be far behind? After transforming the bloodstain on my eyelid from something hideous to magical, my beauty surpassed hers without question. The entire Chu palace was turned upside down. Yet they couldn't find the beauty the Qin king longed for. Rumors gradually spread that what fell into the clear pool that night wasn't a beauty, but a celestial maiden. Even the Qin king couldn't help but wonder if I was merely an illusion from his drunken stupor. During this time, Octavia had long been forgotten by him, cast to the winds. Estimating the timing was about right, I coincidentally encountered the Prince of Qin again when he visited the plum garden at night. Pillowed amidst a sea of flowers, we tumbled through clouds and rain, remaining sleepless the entire night. In the height of passion, the Prince of Qin recklessly revealed another benefit of me taking the fertility pill. That's what makes men crave for more. Unable to resist, before dawn, when the King of Qin was sound asleep, I quietly gathered my clothes and tiptoed away. Some time passed after that. By day, I was an ugly, low-ranking maid in the Jinjia Palace. After nightfall, I become the Moon Palace fairy cherished by the King of Qin. They say a wife is not as good as a concubine, and a concubine is not as good as a stolen love. The King of Qin grew increasingly addicted to me, favoring me every night. How could he still remember the beauty the Queen of Chu conveniently gifted him? And since Octavia had been given to the King of Qin, she was no longer the woman of the King of Chu. She has no path forward, and regrets leave no way back. After guarding an empty chamber in the Reed Palace for a month without name or status, I was nearly driven mad. On this afternoon, at the heart of the lake pavilion, Octavia, consumed by resentment, sought another way to torment me. "Sister, I found that delicate eunuch you fancy for you," she beckoned, and a eunuch with a pale complexion and sharp, monkey-like features immediately stepped forward. He's still the chief eunuch, with both looks and status. It's just he has some peculiar methods and preferences when it comes to women. Octavia covered her lips and laughed as she spoke. "Sister, you must live well in the eunuch's quarters, so as not to waste all the effort I've put into finding this match for you." My heart sank as I whispered to Octavia, "Though it's not a proper grand wedding, we should still prepare the dragon phoenix candles, the red bridal veil, and the nuptial wine." Octavia curled her scarlet lips into a smile. "Very well. You go and prepare. Tonight I shall come to claim my celebratory wine." Returning to Jinjia Palace, I immediately painted pomegranate blossoms on my cheeks and hurried to Pixing Pavilion to seek the Qin King's protection. But halfway there, darkness suddenly engulfed my vision, and I collapsed unconscious to the ground. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself tightly bound and thrown in the Queen's chambers. The Queen's face darkened. "Name your lover, and I'll grant you an intact corpse." Octavia's charming features twisted with venom. Vivian's illicit pregnancy defiled the royal harem. She deserves execution. Dazed, I hung outside the heavenly sacrifice hall. The king and queen summoned the entire palace to witness the punishment as a warning to all. Watching the King of Qin stride over with sweeping steps, I gazed at him through tearful eyes and silently mouthed the word, "My king, what crime has she committed?" The King of Qin demanded through clenched teeth, pointing at me. "This vile woman has been secretly involved with a palace servant and is already 1 month pregnant. She remains unrepentant, refusing to name her lover." Octavia continued with a vicious laugh, disregarding the king's increasingly terrifying expression. "She should be disemboweled as a public example and executed by slow slicing." "How dare you?" the King of Qin roared in thunderous fury, slapping Octavia to the ground. "While I stand here, who dares lay a finger on her or the child?" Octavia covered her heavily swollen cheek, aggrieved and incredulous. "Your Majesty, why are you protecting this wretch? Could it be?" Her words came to an abrupt halt, as if struck by a sudden thought. Octavia's expression twisted into something ferocious, muttering to herself, "No, it can't be." Even Queen Chu wore a face of terrified panic, trembling uncontrollably. I'm afraid she also realized that the King of Qin was the adulterer they claimed deserved to die 1,000 deaths. The King of Qin strode toward me with steady, powerful steps, untying the hemp rope that bound my wrists. I instantly leaned into his embrace. Casting a lingering glance at Octavia kneeling on the ground, I saw her brows tightly furrowed, her gaze like venom fixed on my face and abdomen. A strange smile suddenly appeared on Octavia's ferocious face. "This vile woman has been pretending and deceiving the king all along." There's clearly an ugly red patch on her eyelid. Not the natural red blossoms of a fairy. The Qin King's sharp gaze instantly fell upon my eyelids. "Your Majesty, what Octavia says is true." I raised my eyes and gazed at him tenderly. "Before meeting you, I was just a palace maid with an ugly red patch on my eye, but ever since your Majesty entered the Chu Palace, I suddenly transformed into this appearance." Fearing that such an anomaly might cause panic, I've tried my best to conceal it with rouge, yet every time I see your Majesty, the pomegranate flowers on my face grow more vivid. I lowered my head with shyness and timidity. It wasn't until they said I was with child that I remembered the pomegranate's symbolism of fertility. Perhaps all of this was heaven's guidance. The King of Qin wore a skeptical expression at my account of the divine vision. But when his gaze fell upon my belly, his eyes suddenly softened with tenderness. "Nonsense." Octavia pointed at me, gnashing her teeth. "The king is the sovereign of all under heaven. How could a lowly wretch like you dare deceive him?" Before I could speak, she aggressively cut in. "This concubine's sincere heart fears only that your Majesty might fall for this vile woman's treacherous scheme. I beg your Majesty to grant me a chance to prove it. Fetch a basin of water for verification, and the truth shall be revealed." The King of Qin swept his gaze across the crowd and ultimately did not defend me. Granted. Soon, a palace attendant brought a basin of water and raised it high overhead. To verify the truth, the King of Qin personally wet a handkerchief and wiped the pomegranate flower pigment from my eyelids, catching a glimpse of Octavia trembling with excitement and pride from the corner of my eye. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Little does she know Though I've spent these days fixing the color of this pomegranate flower, it wasn't painted on with a brush. Rather, on the night the Prince of Qin entered the palace, I used a needle dipped in pigment to prick it into my skin. Her flower is indeed real, the Prince of Qin declared, unfolding the handkerchief to show the crowd. No trace of pigment remained, while the pomegranate blossom on my eyelid still bloomed vividly. These days, to prevent Octavia from noticing, I've been using rouge to conceal it. Only when meeting the King of Qin would I wash it off, revealing the pomegranate flower pattern, so Octavia naturally assumed this flower was temporarily drawn to deceive the King of Qin. Catching the triumphant curve at my lips, she completely lost her mind. You vile wretch, what trick did you use? My king, summon the royal physicians. They'll surely uncover what deceit this harlot employed to fool you. How dare you call her a whore? The King of Qin kicked Octavia in the chest. How could you dare to insult my woman like this? Still unsatisfied, he shouted. Guards, give this madwoman 20 lashes on the spot. 20 lashes would be enough to take Octavia's life. Though I hated her to the core, I didn't want her to die immediately. Gently stroking the King of Qin's chest to soothe him, I pleaded for Octavia's mercy. Your Majesty, today your servant brings joyous news, and it is inauspicious to shed blood. We should accumulate blessings for the child in my womb, perhaps spare her life. So be it, as you wish. The King of Qin held me tightly as if treasuring a priceless jewel. You are the pomegranate blossom heaven bestowed upon this lonely king, destined to bring me abundant descendants and great fortune. With that declaration, the King of Qin raised his arm and proclaimed, from this day forth, she shall be my Lady Vivian, second in status only to the Queen of Qin. The Queen of Qin bore the king's only princess, thus elevating her status as the most honored woman through her daughter's prestige, and now that I'm with child, my status is second only to the queen's. If I can successfully bear the King of Qin's son, the queen's position will surely be within my grasp. Congratulations to the King of Qin, congratulations to Lady Vivian. The crowd knelt and cheered in unison, with a single thought from him. I transformed from the lowliest palace maid into someone even the King and Queen of Chu must regard with caution. Looking at those fearful faces, I experienced for the first time in my life the benefits of power. The King of Qin allowed me to reside with him in the starlit pavilion, an unparalleled favor and honor. I returned to change into luxurious garments, then proceeded to the Reed Palace surrounded by palace attendants to witness Octavia's punishment. The old matron mustered all her strength to strike her proud, exquisitely beautiful face with bamboo paddles. How dare you forget your place? How dare you speak insolently before the mistress? Soon, Octavia's delicate cheeks and red lips were swollen beyond recognition. Her gaze, previously unfocused, suddenly darkened as she spotted me through the crowd. She mumbled something indistinct under her breath. I walked over leisurely, bent down, and whispered in her ear, "Is this the life you wanted? As your elder sister, I'll personally teach you this lesson. The beauty you're so proud of is actually worthless." The King of Qin originally planned to depart for his homeland these days, but the journey was delayed because I was with child. He places great importance on the child I'm carrying, worried about the long and arduous journey back to Qin. He insisted on waiting until I completed 3 months of pregnancy and the fetus stabilized before setting out, as the date of return approached. Octavia could no longer sit still. She had already been given to the King of Qin. Even if the King of Chu had once been fond of her, he could no longer keep her in the Chu palace. Moreover, because Octavia had repeatedly schemed against and insulted me, the King of Qin detested her deeply and never included her in the list of people to bring back to Qin. Once the ceremonial procession returns to Qin, Octavia will have only 2 options left, either be ordered to commit suicide or become a nun. Madam, I heard Octavia tried another trick to seduce the king. This time she pretended to be a lotus fairy in the pond, but the king didn't even let her approach. He just ordered her thrown back into the lake. Octavia has always been extremely confident in her beauty, which is why she becomes more persistent the more she's rejected by the King of Qin. As I listened to the palace attendants report, I could vividly picture her making coquettish gestures only to be thrown back into the water in utter disarray. This Octavia is truly foolish. The king has entrusted all matters regarding the return to Qin to you, my lady. If she genuinely wishes to follow back to Qin, she'd be better off pleading with you. Instead, she spends her days annoying the king. Doesn't she fear he might draw his sword in a fit of rage and end her life? I knew the time had come. Go and inform the king that I've been suffering from morning sickness lately and wish to entrust all arrangements for our return to Qin to his chief eunuch, Amen. Now I'm giving Octavia a chance. It's up to her whether she can seize it. Within a few days, palace servants came to report, Madam, Octavia has been spending nights in eunuch Amon's quarters these past few evenings. It said that last night was especially brutal. Octavia's screams lasted from dusk till dawn without ceasing. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. These eunuchs, physically incomplete and having witnessed countless filthy deeds while enduring endless humiliation, grow increasingly twisted in mind the higher they climb in position. Octavia must have known this would happen, which is why she forced me to submit to the chief eunuch of the Chu royal palace. She even told me to live well with him and bear his children. Who would have thought she'd now voluntarily offer herself to the most powerful eunuch by the Qin king's side, serving him with utmost satisfaction. Aemon added her name to the list of those returning to the Qin palace. When bringing the roster for my review, they always cautiously glance up to gauge my expression, afraid I might still hold a grudge. That in a fit of anger I'd strike Octavia's name from the list. I casually toss the roster back. Proceed as you've arranged. Octavia harbors deep hatred for me. Keeping her close indeed carries risks, requiring constant vigilance against her retaliation. But if we simply let her die or become a nun so easily, how could we face our mother who is literally angered to death by Octavia throughout the journey back to the Qin palace? Neither I nor my personal attendants relaxed for a single moment. Suspicious incense on garments. Seemingly harmless yet mutually conflicting ingredients, every potential hazard that could affect the child has been meticulously eliminated by us. By the time the ceremonial procession of the Qin king arrived at City, on the verge of entering the imperial capital of Qin, my belly had swelled prominently, with the fetus already over 7 months along. Madam, your previous carriage has been damaged. Please proceed to another one. The young eunuch, seeing me struggle slightly as I hunched to exit the carriage, immediately raised his hand to assist. I had just placed my hand on his forearm when suddenly a tremendous force struck from behind. My feet stumbled violently beneath me. As I fell from the carriage, I twisted my body to land on my shoulder and elbow first, rolling with my arms protecting my belly. After hitting the ground, it felt like there wasn't a single part of my body that didn't ache. Amid the terrified and frantic cries for help from the young eunuch and other palace attendants, the excruciating abdominal pain blurred my consciousness. In my dazed state, I seemed to see Octavia's face twisted with excitement, a 7-month-old fetus, endless streams of blood, and increasingly violent abdominal pain. Everyone's expressions were utterly grim. Even I myself thought this child probably couldn't be saved. The king of Qin was so furious outside the delivery room that he beheaded several palace maids in his rage, until the baby's cry pierced the sky. Every palace maid's face showed the joy of surviving a disaster. The old nanny brought the swaddled baby to me and said, "Congratulations, madam, it's a young prince." Before the delivery room was even tidied up, the king of Qin couldn't wait and rushed in. He lifted the child high with his arms, his expression caught between tears and laughter. This humble king finally has a son. Hearing his son's weak, kitten-like cries, the king of Qin felt his heart ache unbearably. His face darkened instantly, and he immediately summoned the imperial physician. The young master was born prematurely. Could there be any complications? The physician knelt in fearful reverence and replied, "There is a folk saying, 7 months thrive, 8 months struggle. From my observation, the young master is merely frail and weak. With no immediate danger to his life, with proper care, he will surely grow up safely." Overjoyed by the news, the king of Qin declared, "The young master shall be named Harlan. As my son, he is destined for both fortune and longevity." When Octavia was brought before me, she saw me gently rocking the cradle with delight, inside of which lay Harlan, the king of Qin's most beloved son. Her gaze fell upon us mother and child with hatred. "I never expected the pregnancy pill to be so potent. Even after you were thrown from the carriage, you still managed to deliver the child safely." I smiled faintly, couldn't be bothered to explain to her. Besides the pregnancy pill's solid fetus-protecting effects, I also used a self-sacrificing posture to shield the baby during the fall, leaving my left shoulder and upper arm weak to this day. "Guards, force the medicine down her throat," I commanded loudly. Seeing the little eunuch carrying a bowl of dark, murky medicine with a sinister expression as he approached her, Octavia shrank back in fear. "No, don't poison me." Octavia finally yielded to me, prostrating on the ground and kowtowing repeatedly. "Sister, I beg you to spare me. I wasn't the one who pushed you down. I know it wasn't you who pushed me, but didn't you also fan the flames from behind?" I smiled faintly. "This debt will be settled when we return to the palace. I'll naturally settle it with her then, don't worry. This medicine won't kill you." Knowing you'll never experience motherhood in this lifetime, I specially had the imperial physician prepare it so you could personally feel what childbirth is like. After the bowl of medicine was forcibly poured down her throat, Octavia soon bled profusely from below, writhing in agony as her body curled and stiffened alternately. She screamed with heart-rending anguish, clenching her fists and pounding the ground violently. At the peak of her torment, her eyes burned crimson. "Vivian, I swear you'll die a wretched death." I glanced at her dismissively. "Whether you have that capability or not, I don't know. What I do know is that you'll first experience a living hell in my hands." Upon returning to the Qin royal palace, I saw the Queen of Qin waiting respectfully at the palace gates with a young maiden in her early teens. The King of Qin joyfully descended from his imperial carriage. "My Princess Zara." Let your father have a good look at you. Princess Zara spread her arms and fluttered into the king's embrace like a lively butterfly, cooing. Zara missed father so much. Witnessing the scene, I instinctively tightened my embrace around Harlan in my arms. The Qin prince had few heirs and placed utmost importance on familial bonds. His affection and regard for Princess Zara would not diminish by even half because of this son. Thinking this, I subconsciously raised my eyes to look at the Queen of Qin. Coincidentally, she also cast a sharp glance in my direction, her eyes filled with nothing but disdain and a challenge. Oh, so this is the little brother. Princess Zara suddenly lunged at me without warning, startling me into instinctively dodging sideways while holding Harlan. Her eyes instantly welled up with tears as she looked at me pitifully, then at the King of Qin. Zara likes the little brother. Does Lady Vivian not like Zara? She was just frightened by ill-intentioned villains. It's definitely not that she dislikes you. The King of Qin verbally defended me, but his gaze already carried a hint of displeasure. My heart suddenly sank as I heard Zara speak with innocent frankness. Oh, the little brother is so small and frail, not at all resembling our tall and heroic father. He doesn't look like father's child one bit. The moment Zara uttered these words, the King of Qin's expression changed instantly. Weeping pitifully, I held Harlan and knelt heavily before Princess Zara. I beg your highness to show mercy and spare us mother and child. The King of Qin frowned deeply. What do you mean by this? This concubine has discovered that the person who caused my carriage accident and premature birth was acting under Princess Zara's orders. The princess is still young and has always enjoyed your majesty's exclusive favor. Suddenly facing the prospect of siblings, she might have momentarily lost her way. Therefore, I ordered the palace staff to keep silent and maintain secrecy. With each word I spoke, my voice grew more choked with emotion. I never imagined Princess Zara would be so intolerant of me and the child, even going so far as to imply before your majesty that Harlan might not be your son. The Queen of Qin's face darkened. This is absolute nonsense. Princess Zara's eyes flashed with panic. Father, this woman has ill intentions and is slandering me. Until I presented the palace servants they secretly contacted along with the evidence, both the Queen of Qin and Princess Zara's expressions changed. Facing the terrifying gaze of the King of Qin, Princess Zara tugged at his robe and pleaded desperately, Father, I just didn't want to share your affection with others. I know I was wrong. I am deeply disappointed in you. The King of Qin said coldly as he turned away and pulled his robe free. You're merely a daughter. Even without Harlan, the imperial power of Qin would never be yours. I truly don't understand what you and your mother hope to gain by causing this scene. Summon someone, choose an auspicious day and quickly send Princess Zara to the state of Zhao for a political marriage. The King of Qin, who had been a loving father just moments ago, now ignored the desperate pleas of the queen and his daughter. Dragging me away with long strides, Octavia, who was involved in this incident, was also punished, demoted from a beauty to a low-ranking palace servant. I heard she was even sent to serve in the Queen of Qin's palace. When Harlan was 3 months old, Princess Zara married far away to the state of Zhao for a political alliance. My daughter is leaving. May my royal father and mother take care of yourselves and enjoy long-lasting health. Princess Zara, dressed in a long trailing crimson wedding gown, knelt on the ground and bowed deeply to the King and Queen of Qin who came to see her off. The King of Qin stood with his hands behind his back on the city wall, his tall figure inexplicably exuding a sense of desolation and sorrow. His anger subsided, but in his heart, he couldn't bear to part with his beloved daughter who had been doted on and pampered as she grew up, with her only daughter married far away. The Queen of Qin fell ill and remained bedridden after returning to the palace from the wedding. Leveraging the King of Qin's affection for their daughter and his sense of guilt towards her, the Queen quickly secured the King firmly by her side. For over a full month, the King of Qin spent nearly every waking moment by the Queen's side during her convalescence until her health gradually improved. Everyone says the King and Queen have shared a deeply affectionate marriage for years. It seems I'm falling out of favor. Even the finest provisions that used to be allocated first to our Fuyuan palace eunuchs are now being redirected, with all matters requiring prior approval from the Queen of Qin. Octavia, who had been promoted to chief mate of the Queen's retinue, came swaggering before me to flaunt her newfound status. Vivian, when the rabbits die, the hounds are cooked. I'll be waiting to see her and this little bastard's downfall. Then I'm afraid you won't live to see it. Before I could finish speaking, I couldn't help but press a handkerchief to the corner of my mouth. My stomach churned incessantly, and suppressed retching sounds escaped my throat. Under Octavia's horrified and disbelieving gaze, I chuckled lightly, as my aunt, care to guess whether the child in my womb is a son or daughter? I was pregnant again. And the Queen of Qin along with Octavia reacted as if facing a formidable enemy. They might join forces against me, but the King of Qin is no fool. Looking across the entire court and harem, he certainly understands what my son and I represent. The entire Fuyuan hall was protected as solid as a fortress, even more impenetrable than the Qin King's bedchamber. Amid the daily and nightly curses of the incompetent Qin Queen and Octavia, I bore 2 children in 3 years, and each birth was a son. On the day I gave birth to my third son Maddox, the Qin Queen fell ill again. This time she was genuinely angered to the point of falling ill, not pretending. The Queen of Qin's illness struck with sudden ferocity, leaving even the imperial physicians helpless. She passed away before Maddox could even reach his first month. With the Queen of Qin's death, the tree fell and the monkeys scattered in the entire royal palace. Aside from the King of Qin, no one holds a more honored position than I. I was still wondering if Octavia would throw herself into the arms of the eunuch steward Aemon again, seeking support for herself. Indeed, a palace servant came to report, "My lady, Octavia has indeed gone to seek refuge with Aemon." However, it was not to become his companion. Who knows what method she used, but she actually impersonated a young eunuch and was assigned to serve closely in the king's bedchamber. She took a risky move, and I felt an indescribable unease. Make sure to have someone keep a close eye on her to see what she's really up to. Not long after, I heard the palace maid report, "Madam, it said that the king favored a palace maid in his chamber last night. That maid disguised as a eunuch seems to be Octavia." I was suddenly stunned. The rattle I was using to play with the child also fell to the ground with a clatter. Once in the Chu palace, Octavia dressed like a celestial beauty and tried every means to seduce the Qin king. Only to earn his increasing disgust and loathing, Octavia disguised herself as a eunuch to lurk by the Qin king's side. I even wondered if she had conspired with the previous dynasty to assassinate the king and usurp the throne. Little did I expect that her goal was to seduce her way to power, and Octavia actually succeeded, though the Qin king never granted Octavia even the lowest official title. He indulged in daily pleasures with her, even neglecting his morning court sessions. That day, I was feeding fish in the imperial garden. Octavia, dressed in eunuch attire, swaggered toward me, ridiculously. For a eunuch, she was accompanied by several attending palace maids and eunuchs. How rare for Lady Vivian to have the leisure to feed fish here. Octavia casually adjusted her sleeve cuffs in front of me, deliberately revealing the golden silk robe reserved only for consorts beneath her eunuch attire, though the king hasn't officially granted me a title. "All my provisions have long been no different from yours." Octavia gazed at me with contemptuous, seductive eyes, her lips curling into a proud, triumphant smile. "Now by day I play the eunuch, while at night I become the king's companion, sometimes a general and page boy, sometimes hunter and widow. The king has always seen you as nothing more than a breeding tool, long since grown weary of you. Now that he's tasted my delights and experienced the exquisite pleasures I offer, why would he ever want to return to your coarse fare?" Seeing my prolonged silence, Octavia actually thought I was either furious or frightened. She advanced toward me step by step. "The wife is never as exciting as the concubine, and the concubine pales next to the thrill of the illicit. My current exalted position owes much to your teachings back then. Vivian, you've hoisted yourself by your own petard. Now you can just sob and seethe under your blankets, watching her swagger about." Acting as if she owned the world, with a calm expression, I scattered the fish food in my hand into the pond, clapped my hands indifferently, and said, "I'm pregnant again, and the royal physician says it's twins this time. If the king finds out, he'll probably declare another general amnesty." Under Octavia's dark and twisted gaze, I clicked my tongue and said, "The king dotes on these sons too much. Over the years, he's nearly emptied all the prisons in our Qin state." Upon learning that I was carrying twins this time, the King of Qin was indeed overjoyed. Another general amnesty was declared, and ancestral temple sacrifices were held. After showing us all this, he continued to live a life of extravagance and debauchery with Octavia. Octavia was right about one thing. After all these years, as the novelty faded, all the King of Qin's favor toward me was merely treating me as a tool for bearing children. But hearing this left me utterly unfazed, because I had already experienced both the exclusive favor of a monarch and the taste of power. From beginning to end, what I wanted was power, not the favor of the King of Qin. Octavia has truly grasped the essence of captivating a ruler, except for the day my twins celebrated their full moon, when the King of Qin made an appearance at the palace banquet. The rest of the time, the King of Qin was monopolized by her alone, never setting foot in the front court or harem again. Indulging in pleasure without a thought for his duties, Octavia often flaunted her favor before me. Yesterday, the king took 2 rejuvenation pills and reveled with me all night. This morning, he drank 2 bowls of deer blood, insisting I beg for mercy beneath him. The King of Qin, already over 50, indulged in such debauchery daily, but his strength could no longer match his desires. I immediately ordered the imperial physicians to produce more rejuvenation pills to ensure a steady supply for the king's bedchamber. At the same time, I instructed the royal kitchen to deliver 2 bowls of deer blood daily to nourish the king's health. By year's end, it will be my eldest son Harlan's 5th birthday. The palace servants and several children eagerly awaited in Fuyuan Hall, hoping the King of Qin would join to celebrate the child's birthday. No need to wait any longer. The king won't be coming. As soon as I finished speaking, the sound of bustling crowds could be heard outside. Stepping out of the palace gates, I saw Octavia being ushered in by a crowd of court attendants. She was radiant with triumph, her raised head seeming to look down upon all mortals. The moment she spotted me, Octavia lifted the phoenix seal high. Vivian, fortune shifts like a river's flow, no matter how fertile you are. Hasn't the king still promised this queen's throne to me? My brow twitched. I never imagined the Qin king could be so blinded by lust as to reach this state. He has no intention of crowning me as queen because the eldest son is still young, and the king of Qin fears I might seize the opportunity to control the court. Yet no one expected the king of Qin to become so infatuated with feminine charms, bestowing both the phoenix seal and the position of queen upon a seductive troublemaker like Octavia. Even the eunuch Aemon dared to puff out his chest in front of me. How dare you, Lady Vivian? Why aren't you kneeling in the presence of the queen? I sneered. Don't be so quick to wield borrowed authority. I'll pay my respects when the official coronation takes place. Hearing this, Octavia and Aemon exchanged grave looks, fearing I might have more tricks up my sleeve. Octavia redoubled her efforts to seduce the king of Qin, urging him to hold the investiture ceremony as soon as possible. It was said the two had been inseparable for 3 days straight, never leaving their bed. The king of Qin was indeed pleased and ordered Aemon to quickly prepare the heaven worship ceremony for the queen's investiture. On the eve of the coronation, Octavia finally got her wish and moved into the Phoenix Palace. Knowing I had arrived, she couldn't wait to show off in the half-finished phoenix robe before me. From now on, I'll be the most noble woman in the Qin Palace, Vivian. You're not even worthy to carry my shoes. I looked at her with pity, even if just for a fleeting moment. It's good to have a beautiful dream. What do you mean by that? Octavia's smile froze on her face. Soon, funeral bells answered her in my stead. The wails of palace attendants echoed through the Qin Palace. The king has passed away. Octavia's eyes glazed over, her expression stunned, as if she couldn't believe her ears. Until court ministers rushed in, prostrating en masse before my son Harlan. By the king's decree, the crown prince is to ascend immediately. The queen dowager is to oversee state affairs and conduct the late king's funeral rites. Surrounded by officials, Harlan proceeded to the grand hall. Looking at Octavia lying limp on the ground like a dead dog, I couldn't help but smirk, because you can never have your own child in this lifetime. You can only curry favor with the monarch. That's also why you fail to realize that what truly grants you enduring nobility and status is never the monarch's favor, but the tangible power firmly grasped in your own hands. Octavia hasn't held her coronation ceremony as queen yet, nor has she been recorded in the royal genealogy. Merely holding the phoenix seal doesn't make her a true queen. Thus, before the phoenix seal could even warm in her hands, it was returned. I demoted her back to the rank of beauty and confined her to the cold palace, where she could watch me govern from behind the curtain, wielding supreme power. As for Octavia, she was destined to die in desolate loneliness this lifetime. Her frail constitution never improved, compounded by the harsh conditions of the cold palace. Soon, I received word that Octavia was at death's door, her lamp of life burning its last. Your Majesty the Empress Dowager, Octavia wishes to see you one last time. I happen to be free right now. Let's go take a look. In the desolate cold palace, not even 30 years old yet, Octavia already appeared emaciated and haggard. The moment she saw me, tears of remorse welled up in her dry, yellowed eyes. Sister, I was wrong. I made the wrong choice from the very beginning. Beauty is indeed a woman's weapon, but had I also possessed a fertile body, I wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. Octavia wept bitterly, filled with regret over her past actions, yet she showed no remorse for having driven our mother to her death, nor for the years of harm and humiliation she inflicted upon me. Sister, I truly know I was wrong. Octavia looked at me with hopeful anticipation, extending her hand. Before I die, could you hold me one more time, just like when we were children? Seeing her pitiful and sorrowful appearance, I walked toward her, dragging my magnificent robe that was half dragon, half phoenix. Gazing at my domineering aura that overlooked the world, Octavia's eyes flashed with fear and admiration. There seemed to be some other emotion mixed in as well, fleeting and gone in an instant. Just as I leaned in to embrace her, I heard the whistling sound of a sharp weapon cutting through the air. Prepared for this, I redirected the hairpin Octavia thrust at me straight into her own heart. Staring at her pained and disbelieving face, I sneered coldly. This queen has never trusted a viper's tears. In her dying moments, Octavia's gaze at me was filled with venomous resentment. Vivian, if I could do it all over again, I would make sure you regret ever being born. I casually adjusted my hair by the temple. Do you know why I brought you from Chu to the Qin Palace, and let you prance around all this time? Because I never considered you worthy as my rival. You only deserve to live a life worse than death, Octavia. You were born foolish and wicked, destined to lose against me. No matter how many times you try again, the outcome will always be the same, watching her vomit blood and die in rage. Just like how my mother had back then, I slowly exhaled the turbid breath that had weighed on my heart for years, gazing at the clear daylight outside the window. Now that Qin has become the dominant power in the world, it's time for me to gradually return the royal authority and governance to Harlan. I'm only 30 years old, with many more years ahead and countless things left to do. From now on, I shall live only for myself. Story 2. I was the burden my mother brought into her second marriage. When I was being devoured by zombies, my mother even comforted my stepsister, who had sent me to my death. Auntie doesn't blame you. It's just that Bella has a short life. My stepsister was deeply touched and called her mom. For the first time, my stepfather even laughed and said, "It's better that she's dead. She was always an outsider." Later, when I became the zombie king, I repeatedly saw my mother crying while holding my old clothes. "Bella, Mom misses you so much." 1. Due to my stepfather's wrong decisions, the convoy was surrounded by a horde of zombies. All the vehicles had to work together and break through to have a chance of survival. To atone for his mistakes, my stepfather volunteered, "You all go first, I'll cover the rear." However, when the convoy was only halfway through, the zombies had already blocked the way ahead. By the time it was my stepfather's turn to drive, the zombies had broken through the side window. Their arms, covered in purple patches and black spots, reached inside. My stepsister screamed reflexively. I don't know where my mother found the courage. She swung her purse at the zombies and repelled them temporarily, but because of my stepsister's scream, more and more zombies came swarming in like a tide. My stepfather frowned. "This won't work. It'd be best if there was something to distract the zombies for us." My stepsister clasped her hands and shouted, "I know, let Sister Bella distract the zombies for us." "Nonsense." My stepfather scolded her mildly. "Although Bella has special abilities, she should be sent to the base and protected. She can't risk her life for the family." I instantly understood my stepsister's intentions, and a chill ran down my spine. Every time this father-daughter duo played their act, my mother would guilt-trip me into sacrificing myself. This time was no exception. "Bella, Uncle David has always provided us with food and shelter. One should know how to be grateful. Mom is begging you. Go out and help." "Okay." I pursed my lips and looked at the three of them again. My stepsister's eyes were filled with naked malice and mockery. My stepfather's eyes showed blatant impatience, and my mother looked guilty and didn't dare to meet my gaze. Sigh. "It's always like this. To be honest, I'm tired." I opened the car door and walked into the zombie horde as they wished, letting the zombies surround me and devour my flesh and bones. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I held back the urge to look back, but I only saw the vehicle speeding away. The mother-daughter pair in the back seat hugged each other tightly. In a trance, I seemed to hear the conversation in the car. "Auntie doesn't blame you. It's just that Bella has a short life." My stepsister seemed extremely touched and called her mom, for the first time, and then there was my stepfather's voice. "It's better that she's dead. She was always an outsider, too." Ho ho. I felt as if I had been chewed up by a dog. It hurt, and I was cold, as my blood drained away. The things in my field of vision kept expanding in my pupils. I could also hear the sound of car wheels in the distance. When my consciousness finally returned, I found that I wasn't dead. Well, I couldn't really say I was alive either. I just probably couldn't be human anymore. 3. I became a zombie that retained my humanity. I not only kept my previous memories and mental type abilities but also gained 2 new abilities, clairvoyance and clairaudience. The evolution happened in an instant, when my consciousness came back. My stepfather's car was still within the range of my clairvoyance. I saw that without me as a decoy, his car was in trouble again, but thanks to my sacrifice, they had caught up with the convoy. In the back seat, my mother was hugging my stepsister, her mouth moving. I pricked up my ears. "Natalie, don't be sad. Mom has always treated you like her own daughter." My stepsister nestled in her arms and nodded repeatedly. "Mom, that's great." When Sister Bella was around, I always felt uncomfortable. "Now that she's gone, you're my mom and only mine." My mother replied with an excited "Mom." The two of them hugged even tighter. I closed my eyes and subconsciously touched my chest. Why doesn't it hurt anymore? Oh, right, I'm already dead. Zombies don't have a heartbeat. I remember that ever since my father died and my mother remarried, I no longer had a home. My grandparents on both sides treated me like a hot potato, passing me back and forth. At that time, I counted the days, thinking that everything would be okay when I turned 18, I could get a job and support myself. But I never expected that my mother would come to pick me up. I heard the conversation in the living room from the utility room and couldn't believe my ears. It wasn't until my mother said firmly, "David brought it up on his own. He's a good man," at that moment I thought my mother loved me, but when I got to that home, I realized I was wrong. My mother was a full-time housewife, and the family's monthly living expenses came from my stepfather's salary. Life was very tight. As a burden who only ate without contributing, I was naturally in a difficult situation. My stepsister said that underwear and socks couldn't be washed in the washing machine, so my mother asked me to wash them by hand. My stepfather said the food lacked flavor, so my mother asked me to take cooking courses. My mother said doing housework was tiring, so I immediately went to mop the floor and wipe the tables. I wasn't a member of that family. I was a maid. 5. As a maid, I couldn't be disrespectful. My stepsister was the master, and I wasn't even allowed to outperform her in exams. Otherwise, I would be met with her sarcasm. What's the use of getting good grades as a burden? Be careful that you won't have the money to go to high school even if you get in. Don't expect my dad to pay for you. We're not going to be suckers. My stepfather laughed, as if he agreed. My mother blushed in embarrassment and quickly pushed me to say something to smooth things over. I was too tongue-tied and couldn't say a word. After that, I learned my lesson and controlled my scores according to my stepsister's grades. The teacher didn't know what was going on at home and just called me to the office, looking at my grades. She sighed. Bella, if this goes on, you definitely won't be able to get into high school. No matter what happens, you have to study hard. In the future, when you enter society, your education is the key to opening doors. I understood it all. Teacher, my family doesn't have the money to support my studies. I remember the teacher was silent for a moment, then suddenly stood up and half-hugged me. As long as you work hard and rank among the top 20 in the grade, I'll apply to the school to waive your high school tuition for 3 years. With those words from the teacher, I studied desperately at school. In the high school entrance exam, she got 519 points, and I got 1,018 points. I entered the high school affiliated with our school with all my tuition waived, while my stepfather had to use connections and spend money to get my stepsister into school. When I got home, my mother even blamed me. What's the point of getting such good grades? You've embarrassed your sister so much that she doesn't dare to go out and has been angry with me for days. 6. I took a deep breath, retracted my abilities, and left with the zombie horde. From now on, these zombies, who wouldn't order me to sacrifice myself, were my kind. Zombies always migrated following the crowds. Humans could only fight back passively and mostly spent their time hiding. I liked my current identity. Among zombies, there were no complex human relationships, and there was no emphasis on blood ties. I wouldn't be in a situation where I was always sacrificed because of a biological father-daughter and a non-biological mother-daughter relationship. I was reborn in a society where all zombies were equal. In less than 3 days, I fully integrated into the group. Following them, we arrived near the No. 3 base in the city, using my clairvoyance. I saw the zombies in the front row being used as cannon fodder, so I immediately hid in the middle of the group. After a while, the group suddenly became restless. I was squeezed so hard that my feet left the ground, and I was forced to move forward. When I got closer, I understood what was going on. The gates of the base had opened, and there were rows of armed soldiers inside. Each of them held a rifle with a bayonet. Looking solemn, my heart tightened. I guessed that the No. 3 base might be about to violently clear the nearby zombie horde. Sensing the danger, I grabbed 2 zombies beside me and made a hasty retreat. We retreated about 5 or 6 miles and stopped in a small forest, leaning against a tree to calm my nerves. I heard continuous ho-ho sounds behind me. Slowly turning around, I was stunned. I only grabbed 2, but why did a large group follow? I counted them one by one. There were over 50 zombies in total. After thinking for a while, I had a bold guess. To verify this idea, I summoned all the zombies within a 5-kilometer radius to this small forest. Looking at the sizable team in front of me, I finally understood the true use of my mental type abilities. 7. The next day, after getting used to my new role as the leader, an uninvited convoy came to the small forest. Yes, it was the convoy my stepfather was in. He must have regained the trust of the group and returned to the 3rd position. I was a bit silent, but the zombie subordinates behind me were eager to move. In the dim shadows of the forest, scarlet glows lit up one after another. There are zombies here. A scream officially kicked off the cruel scene. The most primitive form of hunting played out here, with humans becoming the lambs and zombies the butchers. In the chaos, I saw my mother. She had just taken out the cooking utensils from the trunk. When she heard the scream, her first reaction wasn't to run. Instead, she looked in my direction. My stepfather pulled my stepsister past her, and the 2 of them quickly got into the car. Seeing my mother looking back, they cursed, "Damn it. Do you want to die, you stupid woman? Get in the car right now." My mother's eyes instantly welled up with tears. In the past, my stepfather would pretend to be modest in front of others and never speak harshly, but times had changed. He knew my mother couldn't survive without him, so his attitude became more and more casual. "No, In the apocalypse, there was no need to pretend anymore. My stepsister sat in the passenger seat, and the father-daughter pair chatted. My mother couldn't get a word in and was so anxious that her eyes turned red. I laughed silently. This was something I had to go through every day before. Mom, can't you stand it now? 8. The convoy ran away. I could see them heading towards the base. Following them, I happened to see the base sending people out to register them. Does the team have any ability users? Those who do, come here to register. The No. 3 base had special policies for ability users. First, they received the highest level treatment, such as a free villa, 30 pounds of food, and 50 tons of water per month. Second, the families of ability users could not only move into the villa at the lowest cost but also get priority for job positions. There were only 2 team leaders in the convoy who were ability users. The moment they left the team and stood on the right, they started enjoying the treatment of ability users. They entered a private room for isolation through a fast track. As for ordinary people, they had to stand in line and go through a long registration process. When it was my stepfather's group's turn, he lied to the registrar. I have a daughter who is an ability user. She went to deal with the zombie horde on the way and disappeared. Can you help me find her? The registrar had obviously never encountered such a situation before. After consulting the leader in person, he agreed to my stepfather's request and allowed them to temporarily enjoy the treatment of ability user families. If your daughter hasn't been found after a month, it means she's dead. At that time, we will immediately stop the benefits you're enjoying. My stepfather bowed obsequiously to the registrar, waved with a smile at the others, and then made a beeline for the express lane. My stepsister followed closely behind, leaving my mother, burdened with bags, stumbling along at the end. From the base's attitude, it was easy to see that the law of the jungle would become even more severe. I shifted my attention to my zombie brethren and began to think about how to enhance my abilities and the overall strength of my kind. 9. The nearby rice mill was extremely large. Once employing thousands of workers and boasting abundant stockpiles of grain, it could serve as my main base, continuously welcoming new members, and also restrict the development of surrounding forces. The No. 3 base had set its sights on this prize at the same time as me. They dispatched 4 search teams to scout the area. I sent a few zombies to spy and discovered that there were actually 8 ability users hidden among the teams. Interestingly, my stepfather was one of them. He sat next to one of the ability users and started chatting. Are you married? If not, would you consider my daughter? Is she pretty? How about her figure? I have 5 girlfriends right now, and I wouldn't mind adding 1 more. My stepfather's face froze. That many? You're truly talented for your age. 5 is nothing. Our boss keeps a whole villa full of women, like a harem. My stepfather perked up again. You mean Boss Logan? He's truly amazing. It would be great if I could meet him. If your daughter is good looking, I could introduce you. That would be wonderful. My stepfather immediately took out his phone, showed the photos of my stepsister, and they began commenting on them together. The ability user glanced at the photos but wasn't very interested. Seeing this, my stepfather quickly found my photo and showed it to him. Then take a look at this daughter of mine. She's also an ability user. The other person immediately sat up straight, his eyes shining brightly. Not bad. Our boss has been looking for an ability user to be his main wife, hoping to have an ability user child in the future. My stepfather laughed heartily and kept saying yes. She's on a mission outside and isn't around for now. How about we exchange contact information first? The other person was even more satisfied upon hearing this. Witnessing this blatant attempt to sell his daughters, I wasn't overly surprised. When I first came to my stepfather's house, he had already been sizing up the value I could bring him. As a minor, I could do chores, and when I came of age, he could collect the bride price from my future husband. Now, I was grateful that I had become a zombie and was no longer at anyone's mercy. 10. An hour later, I met Logan, who kept a harem. He had long black hair that draped over his shoulders, with his bangs covering his eyes and eyebrows. His skin wasn't fair, and his lightning ability was extremely lethal. In just a few breaths, dozens of my zombie brethren were eliminated. He seemed truly unique. I waited until he exhausted his abilities, then summoned a group of elite zombies to severely dampen their morale. Logan quickly lost the ability to defend himself and was chased around in a sorry state. However, even so, there was still a group of people surrounding him, ready to sacrifice their lives to protect him. My stepfather was among them. In a moment of panic, he pushed the person next to him in front of him. Only when the person was within reach of the zombie's claws did he realize what he had done. Before he could explain, he found that his companions had already warily distanced themselves from him. 11. The next time I saw my stepfather, I could barely recognize him. He hadn't bathed for a long time, looking unkempt with dirty clothes. My mother followed beside him, the lines between her brows deeper, wearing a look of constant distress. I remembered that this team was the dung beetle team responsible for disposing of the base's garbage. There were 3 waves of zombies lying in wait at the garbage station they were heading to. I deliberately wanted to establish my authority and stop the No. 3 base from expanding southward. The southern area where the rice mill was located had completely fallen and become my main base. My next plan was to annex the land of the No. 2 base and drive the people towards the No. 1 base, while my mind was racing. The first wave of attacks was launched at the garbage station kilometers away. I was taken aback for a moment, but my body reacted first. With the overwhelming number of zombies, the dung beetle team wisely retreated, sewage and garbage were casually discarded on the ground, and the people had retreated to the transport vehicles. Those who were slower were already surrounded by zombies. I looked at the woman kneeling amidst the horde of zombies. Her sallow face was filled with helplessness. Strangely, I felt a mix of satisfaction and grievance. Mom. Now do you know how I felt back then? How does it feel to be abandoned? Screech. The wheels screeched against the ground. They were about to leave. I raised my head, and my vision was instantly covered in red. The third wave of zombies approached from a distance, their steps synchronized, causing obvious vibrations on the ground. It's over. There are more zombies. This isn't right. These zombies are doing this on purpose. Could it be that a zombie king has been born? Some vehicles tried to speed up and break through. The first vehicle succeeded, and the second one tried to follow suit. How could I let my stepfather go so easily? I immediately controlled all the surrounding zombies to attack, forcefully pulling him out of the driver's seat and breaking his leg, suppressing the satisfaction at the corner of my mouth. I let my mother go and help him up. As soon as the rescue team arrived, the zombie horde left at my command. As I watched the rescue team leave, my mother suddenly turned her head. It seemed like she had spotted me. Her eyes widened suddenly, and she threw herself at the window, screaming. 12. I blanked my eyes and walked in a twisted manner, mimicking the other zombies. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her pounding on the window. Deep down, I felt an indescribable sense of glee. I even wickedly hoped to see her cry for me. If she did, I would secretly be a little nicer to her. But the next second, I heard my stepfather's scolding voice. What are you going crazy for? Sit down. My mother quickly sat down and explained. I think I saw Bella. She's an ability user. If she comes back, we can move back into the big house. Natalie won't have to worry about where her next meal is. She's already lost 20 pounds in such a short time. My stepfather. The families of ability users get good treatment. They have priority in choosing good jobs. Are you sure you saw Bella just now? My mother seemed to be recalling my current appearance and was uncertain. I think so. My stepfather became annoyed. Don't talk nonsense if you're not sure. You got my hopes up for nothing. The rescue team's vehicle drove away, and I couldn't hear the rest of the conversation clearly, nor did I want to. I was so naive to think that my mother might still have a shred of love for me. After all, ever since she remarried, she had never done a single thing for me. My stepsister and I went to the same school, and the parent-teacher meetings were on the same day. The first 2 times I asked her to come, she refused, saying that since my stepsister's grades were poor, she needed parental support more. After that, without my asking, she never attended any of my parent-teacher meetings. There was also the year of the flu when both my stepsister and I fell ill. My mother cooked a pot of plain rice porridge and fed it to my stepsister, spoon by spoon, in her room. My stepsister wasn't even grateful and insisted that my mother go out and buy lean meat porridge. I also had no appetite. It wasn't until the middle of the night, when I was starving, that I got up and drank the cold porridge. Obviously, there was no salt in the porridge, but it tasted incredibly salty and bitter. After finishing, I subconsciously washed the bowl. When I went out, I saw my mother coming out of my stepsister's room, looking exhausted. She glanced at me and said, "You're better now, right? Go back to school tomorrow and don't fall behind in your studies." I nodded and left, and this time, I just stood there in silence for a moment and then left. In the days that followed, I vengefully seized more land. My zombie army captured the No. 2 base in half a month. Although the people inside had already evacuated in advance, they weren't what I was after. The eyes of the outside world turned towards me. They formulated a plan to eliminate me, trying to nip me in the bud. But before they could act, I successfully advanced to a new stage. Now, I looked no different from a human. 13. During an external rescue mission of the No. 1 base, I managed to sneak into the base. Thanks to my stepfather's penny-pinching nature, my file still showed me as missing, not dead. The identity of an ability user was extremely useful. When I expressed my interest in joining the gene optimization research project, someone immediately came to contact me. All you need to do is provide 1 test tube of blood per week, and you can enjoy the final results. I pondered for a moment. Is it possible to take a tour? Yes, but you won't be able to enter the core projects. I nodded slightly. It didn't matter if I couldn't enter, as long as I was close enough. My mental type ability could detect the situation inside. According to the remaining intelligence from the No. 2 base, the gene optimization project of the No. 1 base had once taken a wrong turn and accidentally developed a zombie evolution fluid when zombies used it. Their abilities could be comprehensively enhanced. The research team had planned to destroy it at the time, but a certain researcher in the core group insisted on keeping it, saying it could be helpful for future experiments. I was determined to get my hands on it. On the way to the research institute, the sky was overcast, and no sunlight could penetrate. Suddenly, someone rushed towards me on the road. I quickly turned around, and the person almost fell to the ground. The staff from the research institute beside me quickly asked with concern, "Are you okay?" I shook my head and looked straight ahead. "Bella, I'm your mother." The woman who spoke had messy hair hanging over her shoulders, dulled by dust and sweat. I looked at her with amusement. Her clothes were worn out, and her eyes were filled with deep exhaustion. Had the three of them come to the know, 1 base because my stepfather couldn't get by in the know, 3 base after killing his companions, 14. The Research Institute staff looked back, looking confused. I waved my hand. Ever since I got my abilities, all sorts of relatives have come out of the woodwork. Even my grandfather, who's been dead for decades, has shown up. Isn't that ridiculous? My mother finally broke down in tears. She shouted hysterically, "I'm your only real mother. The scars on your 2 legs can prove what I'm saying. When your father died and no one wanted you, I took you into our new home and took care of you. I never thought I'd raise such an ungrateful wretch. Now that you've got wings and can fly, you want to leave me behind and live a good life on your own, abandoning the parents and family who raised you for all these years? Bella, are you even human?" Gradually, people gathered around and blocked the way. The numbness on their faces began to fade. Humans were like that. Even in such a harsh environment, they still loved to watch the drama. I turned back to look at her. "I do have scars on my legs, but do you know how they got there?" She paused for a moment. "They were from scalds by boiling water." So she knew. Back then, I was 7 years old and weighed less than 40 pounds. The kettle was placed high on the gas stove, and I had to stand on a stool to reach the handle. Usually, I only boiled half a kettle of water at a time, but when my stepfather saw this, he said it was a waste of gas. So my mother filled the kettle to the brim. When the water boiled, it bubbled and gave off scalding steam. Enduring the pain, I carried the kettle to the nearby chopping board, but as I stepped down from the stool, my arm accidentally touched the hot metal of the kettle. The burn was so intense that I instinctively let go. I was too scared to cry, and my pounding heart almost drowned out the sound of my mother's footsteps. When she arrived, she immediately squatted down to check if the kettle was broken and couldn't stop scolding me. "You break bowls when washing them and now you drop the kettle while boiling water. Do you have something against me? If you do, get out of my house. Don't be an eyesore here and embarrass me in front of your uncle." That's when the scars were left. I sneered inwardly. In front of the onlookers, I denied her claim. No, they were from fighting zombies. Almost all the search and rescue teams get injured and scarred to some extent. This isn't enough for you to cling to me. I turned my head. "It's getting late. We should go and take the tour." The Research Institute staff was stunned for a moment, then quickly led the way. The importance, the know. 1 base placed on the Research Institute could be seen from its construction area, which occupied almost 1/5 of the base. After passing through numerous checkpoints, we finally arrived at the project team that had been working on the research for 56 days and nights. There were quite a few projects that blood-donating ability users could visit, but none of them were crucial. To get a look at the core group, I deliberately took my time. Half an hour later, I found what I was looking for. A researcher from the core group came out, his eyes vacant. He handed the item to me, drew a tube of his own blood, and then left. The first tube of the evolution fluid, I divided among 4 of my subordinates during an external mission. For zombies that originally had no abilities evolved to have abilities. After observing for a while, there were no side effects. I felt relieved. After returning to the base, I took 1/5 of the remaining fluid. Unfortunately, its effect on me was minimal. Presumably, the dosage was too small. And I planned to go back next week. 15. Recently, every time I went out, I was bound to run into my stepsister, Natalie. It was as if she was waiting for me there. Seeing that I ignored her, she gradually grew bolder. This time, she directly sat down opposite me with her meal and started to manipulate me. "Sister, I see you're always alone. No men must love you. Why don't I introduce one to you, Matthew? The captain of the search team has always wanted to marry an ability user. Although he's only 167 meters tall, after you get married, he can stay at home and take care of the kids. If the kids inherit your abilities, they can me as their godmother." I was so angry that I laughed. "Are you still sane?" She immediately widened her eyes. "I'm doing this for your own good, and you're scolding me. You're so arrogant. Just because you have abilities, you've lost all sense of reality. If Matthew knew what kind of person you are, he'd definitely look down on you, thinking you have high and mighty airs but the fate of a servant." Me, her cheeks puffed up in anger. When she saw the meat in my bowl, she reached out for it. Just like before. "This is meat, isn't it? You're so unfilial. Remember to get 2 more servings to take home later. Mom and Dad haven't had meat in ages." With a cold smile, I raised my hand and knocked her chopsticks away. Scram, in the apocalypse, Who's going to coddle you anymore during these days? Natalie had developed a thick skin. I had just driven her away yesterday, and today I saw her chatting with someone at the door again. All the people living in this building were ability users. She clung to one of them and said, "The man is unmarried, and the woman is single. Why can't we be together? I don't know you. My name is Natalie. Now you know me. Can we get married?" "Natalie, who are you to Bella?" "Oh, she's my sister." "Of course. But I'm a low-key person and never let her expose my identity to others." After the man was silent for 2 seconds, he said in a bargaining tone, "If you can find out the secret of your sister's ability advancement, I'll marry you." 16. So she would come and stick to me every now and then. I came up with a solution. I secretly found jobs for her and my mother. Natalie didn't like the idea of working, but when the job introducer said, "The house owner is an ability user. His wife passed away at the beginning of the apocalypse, and he has a 14-year-old son. The two men don't know how to manage the household, so they want to. I'm willing." Natalie agreed without thinking. As soon as she arrived at the house, she regarded herself as the mistress. The house owner didn't care because he fancied her youth, and it really seemed like a second marriage to some extent. But the house owner's son was very troublesome and would hit people when he lost his temper. Since then, Natalie had been beaten every day, and there wasn't a single uninjured part on her face. Even after being beaten, she still had to do the work, washing clothes, cooking, mopping the floor, and tidying up were all her tasks. The house owner relied on his son for his old age, so he wouldn't say a word in her defense. He would only take advantage of her secretly and persuade her to be patient. On the other hand, my mother had already been working for 5 days. The high-intensity physical labor had almost exhausted her body. She would come home completely worn out every day and still had to cook for my stepfather, who was lying in bed. Once, she was so tired that she fell asleep as soon as she touched the sofa. My stepfather's stomach ached from hunger, and he went to the living room and beat her. During the scuffle, my stepfather fell to the ground. My mother spread her arms, and there was still a hint of disbelief in her eyes. 17. After a month, my ability successfully evolved. My mental power coverage was sufficient to reach the No. 3 base hundreds of miles away. At the same time, Natalie was pregnant. I didn't mind watching this drama unfold before leaving. She happily stroked her still flat belly and went home to ask her father for a dowry. "My husband is an ability user, and the bride price will definitely not be small. You must prepare a decent dowry for me, otherwise, people will think our family is selling their daughter." My stepfather turned out his pockets to show her. Natalie shrieked loudly, "I don't care, I don't care. How can I hold my head up in the future without a dowry? Are you getting old? Why are you so useless?" She was so anxious that she was running around in circles. My stepfather seemed to have been slapped hard by her, and his face turned livid. "It's not your place to comment on me." My mother went over to persuade her to be patient. This sentence touched Natalie's sensitive nerve. She pushed my mother away violently and cursed, "Bitch, I called you mom out of courtesy, but do you really think of me as your own daughter?" My mother fell to the ground, hitting her head on the corner of the table, and the skin was broken and bleeding. "What kind of look is that?" Natalie grabbed her hair and shook it vigorously. And I watched all this coldly, just like she had done to me before. 18. The next day, I joined the mission to go out and find the food and supplies for the next quarter. I planned to take this opportunity to return to the main base. My mother came to the door of my residence. She brought a bowl of stir-fried onions. The aroma was very strong and inviting. "I have a daughter named Bella. She loves this dish I stir-fry the most. You look a lot like her, so you might like it too." I closed the door and told her, "Stay away from me. I'm allergic to onions." Compared with minced garlic and ginger slices, shredded onions are delicious, but I don't like eating the leftover side dishes from others. Also, I will never forgive her. She didn't leave even though there was a door between us. With a dazed look in her eyes, she talked about me in her words. She was very cute when she was a child. Her eyes were just like her biological father's, big, round, and watery. It's a pity that her biological father passed away too early, and no one wanted this child. After I remarried and formed a new family, I learned from my relatives in my hometown and quickly asked my family for their opinions before bringing her over to live with us. It was a great burden to provide for her food, clothing, housing, and transportation. She didn't understand my good intentions and didn't know that when living under someone else's roof, you have to live according to their moods. She has always hated me secretly. No, she doesn't even want to see me even though there's just a door between us. I laughed and said, "She should be dead, right? If I were her, I would have been reincarnated to find better parents long ago. Why would I waste time hating you?" Suddenly, there was a burst of crying outside the door. I jumped out of the window. The wind blew the corners of my clothes, and my heart was as calm as still water. Why does she think that I would write off more than 10 years of pain just because of a little show of kindness? Is it that my suffering is worthless? Or do all parents think that no matter what they've done wrong, as long as they say a cold "it's time to eat," everything is over? I left, feeling just like the day I went to my death. 19. When I returned to the main base, I found that my zombie army had been reduced to half of its original size under the siege of the elimination plan. I used my human identity to go around the bases to gather information and learned that the Research Institute of the Central Base had mass-produced a certain inhibitor. Around the outer wall of the Central Base, there were installed spray devices filled with the prepared inhibitor. As soon as I got close, I felt suffocated. At that moment, I knew that the end of the zombies was coming. 20. When the world announced that the apocalypse had officially ended, I had already disbanded the zombie army at the main base and fled. A large amount of gold and jewels that I had scavenged on the way were hoarded in the basement of an abandoned villa. After social order was stabilized, I sold and transferred the supplies and hired someone to renovate the villa. The foreman was an honest man. He didn't recommend that I live alone in the wilderness. The zombies haven't been completely cleared yet. What if one breaks into the house? I said. I'm an ability user. I'm not afraid of zombies. My stepfather frowned. This won't work. It'd be best if there was something to distract the zombies for us. While the villa was being renovated, I went to the urban area to go through the formalities. There were a lot of people queuing at the window, and my clairaudience was filled with the sound of idle gossip. The words of one of the women caught my attention. Have you heard about what happened at the No. 1 base? A pregnant woman named Natalie was hacked to death with a knife by her stepmother. Her biological father was so scared that he ran away, but that crazy woman was so cruel that she threw a knife and hit him right in the back. Was that crazy woman not executed? No. Death row inmates are used as bait to trap zombies. She should still be alive. At this time, I was the only one left in the ability user channel. The staff member handed me a household register from the window. Take this back and let your family members fill it out. Without this, you'll be an unregistered resident. I shook my head. No need to go back. I'm the only one in my family. The staff member showed a hint of sadness, seeing that I had just turned 18. He processed the formalities. 21. The exterior of the villa was decorated in a low-key manner, and the interior was completely renovated. I lie at home and watch TV dramas during the day and go out to buy raw meat for animals in the evening. I hire an aunt to come and clean the house regularly. Life is plain but real. It's just that zombies have a very long lifespan and their appearance doesn't age. Every 50 years, I have to move to a new place to settle down.